Chapter 522, Hweol's Origin. 3. Blink. Hweol opens his eyes. Has the opportunity come? The gaze of Hweol, who has been persistently following him all this time. At last, it has diminished. At the same time, he senses that the surveillance over Ran has also weakened. Hweol is preoccupied with something important. Even if he has completed the artificial middle realm, for him to slacken his surveillance of me while the sacred masters are keeping a watchful eye. Hweol quickly predicts Hweol's actions within tainted soul, filling the heavens, and smiles faintly. Entering nirvana advancement. That must be it, as expected. He looks down at his hand. I'm holding on by pouring every kind of secret art into it, but it's difficult. Hweol's collapse is accelerating. The connections among the tainted soul filling the heavens, scattered across the entire universe, are gradually thinning. That being knows me well. Terrifyingly, Hweol has been suppressing Hweol in a way optimized to weaken his power. From severing his connection with Ran and forcing the erosion of the middle realms while evading the watchful eyes of the sacred masters. Forcibly summoning the star veins of the astral realm through tainted soul filling the heavens to sketch a star vein formation exclusively for cedarwood painting. All of it consumes a tremendous amount of tainted soul filling the heavens, and each time such missions continue, the connection between Hweol's grow weaker. At this rate, Hweol will collapse much sooner than he anticipated. Hweol, perhaps, is deliberately aiming for that outcome. Should I act now? Hweol's vertical pupils widen as he sinks into thought. He has two plans, Plan 1 and Plan 2. Plan 1 offers a method to immediately seize Ran. Plan 2 requires more time, but allows him to thoroughly manipulate Hweol and achieve his ultimate goal. If he follows Plan 1, there is a 4 in 10 chance of reclaiming Ran from Hweol's grasp. However, if he follows Plan 2, there is a 9 in 10 chance of successfully manipulating Hweol. But there's not much time. Moreover, if I miss this moment when that bizarre old monster is focused on advancing to entering nirvana, I don't know when another opportunity will come. I need to execute Plan 1, but the problem is the success rate. A mere 40%. No, even that is an optimistic estimate. When he adjusts the probability coldly and rationally, the probability is no more than 18%. Must I gamble on such slim odds? With his vertically slit pupils, Hweol quietly gazes up at the sky. Is there truly no way to escape the hands of that old monster I'm searching for High, but even if I find High, surely that old monster must have done something. It might not even be the split soul of Ohia I once knew. If that's the case, then what am I supposed to do? Hweol feels as though he can't breathe. He's simply trying to find a way to deal with Hweol, but every time he thinks of Hweol, no solution comes to mind. To defeat Hweol now, I need a variable. A single variable that can deceive his eyes. Shudder. Hweol looks at his trembling arm and lets out a faint sigh. Then, following Hweol's orders, he continues assisting Kim Yun with adjusting cedarwood painting. Cedarwood painting, loosely tied together with the power of countless decaying corpse realms and parts of the middle realms, must be adjusted frequently to keep functioning as a world. Of course, this will eventually be resolved after tens of thousands of years once the adjustments are complete. Woo-woo. Hweol's tainted soul filling the heavens is touched by Kim Yun's consciousness. Kim Yun's thread of consciousness, inherited from the Mad Lord's wonderfully mysterious innate heart canon, reaches Hweol and delivers an order to him. Hweol somehow feels as though this entire situation is as if he is working under the Mad Lord's orders. In his lifetime, I couldn't touch the Mad Lord himself, but I controlled his direction with my own hands. Yet now, after his death, I am controlled by the hand of his disciple. It is, in a way, an ironic situation. And as Hweol is thinking this, suddenly, for a very brief moment after receiving Kim Yun's command, Hweol's tainted soul filling the heavens falters. It is a fleeting instant, an incredibly brief moment, but through Kim Yun, Hweol senses the power of the bright cold realm that Kim Yun has been cultivating within the Mad Lord's wonderfully mysterious fortress. The authority that Hyen Iwim or Blood Een would call the power of vast cold. Hweol, albeit briefly, witnesses that power using Kim Yun as a medium. That is all. But just that alone sparks an inspiration in Hweol's mind. It is a coincidence. No, perhaps it is fate. But the crucial point is that just witnessing the power of vast cold for a moment allows Hweol to think of a new plan that he could not have conceived before. Hweol silently observes the plan that arises in his mind, and he realizes that this plan has a considerably high chance of success. Why have I been unable to think of this plan until now? Hweol quickly understands the reason. I see. That's right. Because this is completely different from the oath I made and embedded in my soul. It's because I thought my tainted soul filling the heavens might waver. And if I execute this plan, Co Ran might discover the secrets of my tainted soul filling the heavens. Co Ran, too, seems to have recently gained a feeling for it. A perilous plan that might shake tainted soul filling the heavens and reveal its weakness to Co Ran. However, Co Hweol thinks that this plan is still better than proceeding with Plan 1 alone. Along with the original Plan 1, I will execute this plan simultaneously. That is the only way for Co Hweol to raise his odds of victory against Co Eunhyun. In the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens, Co Hweol sharpens his vertical pupils even further and makes his decision. Good. It's a perilous plan, but I must attempt it. He rises from his spot and begins walking towards an event currently taking place in a corner of cedarwood painting. And in the deepest depths of Co Hweol's tainted soul filling the heavens, a voice resounds. You've gone mad. Co Hweol, completely mad and corrupted. The western edge of cedarwood painting. In a mountain range known as the Golden Shaking Mountain Range, a grand hall has been erected for someone. This hall belongs to the person with the highest status when only considering distribution within the current Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. It is for Yunwei. Yunwei lies on a bed, staring at the ceiling. It seems my life is coming to an end. Her main body is a spirit that is enshrined in the head realm Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. What is here now is merely a split soul strand of her soul. In the past, when there was no vessel for this split soul to reside in, she always remained within her descendant, Yunjin. But ever since Co Eunhyun became a sacred master, Yunwei resided in the human body Co Eunhyun created for her, watching over the cultivation of John Myung-hoon, who represents the very future of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. This has been Yunwei's joy as of late. Step. A group of people enter the bedroom where Yunwei lies. At the forefront is John Myung-hoon, followed by several others. Yunwei, is your body well? As the supreme of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect, John Myung-hoon speaks to Yunwei equally. Yunwei attempts to rise and show respect, but John Myung-hoon stops her. Do not rise. That's an order. I've recently heard that your lifespan is coming to an end, but... Yes, that is true. Embarrassingly, as my lifespan diminishes, the attraction force of the netherworld grows stronger. Soon, I will likely be dragged to the underworld to pay for the sins of my life. Yunwei, John Myung-hoon speaks with a bitter expression. Now, this esteemed one has reached the grand perfection star-shattering stage. Soon, I will undergo the advancement ritual to the sacred vessel stage and possibly become a sacred master. When that happens, with the authority of a sacred master, I can extend your lifespan. A sacred vessel is an existence of at least that much power. It is all right. I have already lived a life far longer than I deserve. I have spent too much time in this world and even witnessed the growth of Sir John Myung-hoon, the successor of the Golden Divine. Now, I simply wish to rest. Yunwei, John Myung-hoon, along with Kim Yun and Oh Hyun-suk, who have been with Yunwei from before, as well as Co Ran and Hong Fan, who have gradually built a connection with Yunwei under Co Eunhyun, all wear gloomy expressions. How much time remains? At John Myung-hoon's question, Yunwei reads the celestial energy and responds. About 7 years. 7 years. For mortals, it is quite a long time. Some might say it is enough time to accomplish many things. But, for Yunwei, whose spirit is that of a cultivator of the four-axis stage, the 7 years would be nothing more than an agonizing period of constant resistance against the netherworld's attraction force. John Myung-hoon lets out a sigh and closes his eyes. I will pray for your lifespan to increase. Following John Myung-hoon, Kim Yun, Oh Hyun-suk, Hong Fan, and Co Ran all join John Myung-hoon in their prayer for Yunwei. At that moment, may I join in that prayer as well? Co Ran flinches in surprise and stumbles backward, while Hong Fan steps in to shield him. John Myung-hoon looks at the owner of the voice with an irritated expression, and Kim Yun glares at the figure with wary eyes. It is Co Hweol. John Myung-hoon does not hide his annoyance as he asks, "What is it, Sea Dragon King? Why are you here?" Like I just said, I have come to offer my prayer for Great Master Yun's well-being. At this, Kim Yun speaks in a solemn tone. She is probably questioning your sincerity. Hong Fan, seemingly focused on interpreting Kim Yun's words, barely manages to explain her meaning. Co Hweol looks at Hong Fan, more precisely, at Co Ran, who is hiding behind him. From the sacred vessel stage onward, one gains the ability to influence the plane of fate, and the prayers of such sacred vessels can, by themselves, affect one's lifespan. With even a modest prayer, it is possible to extend a predetermined lifespan by 1 or 2 years. Are you saying you will extend Yunwei's lifespan? That is not what I mean. I am simply expressing goodwill. As the goodwill of a sacred vessel has the effect of enhancing lifespan on its own, I merely wish to offer my heartfelt prayer. And who are you to do so? I am a natural-born sacred vessel. At Hweol's words, John Myung-hoon considers slapping him but clicks his tongue instead. Do as you please. If you attempt anything suspicious, Eun-hyun will stop you anyway. However, only your genuine goodwill will be allowed. If you reveal any malicious intentions, whether you are Eun-hyun's tool or slave, I will kill you immediately. Ho 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 ho. As if John Myung-hoon's words are amusing, Hweol laughs. Hweol briefly meets Ran's gaze before approaching Yunwei. He presses his palms together as if praying to the land gods enshrined in a temple. Closing his eyes and erasing all expression from his face, he speaks. For your well-being, I, Hweol, offer my prayer. Hweol bows slightly. Yunwei watches this scene and nods absent-mindedly. Hweol then smiles again, turns around, and exits Yunwei's chamber. Hey, Kim Yun. John Myung-hoon asks with veins bulging on his face. I know you're specialized in consciousness. Did you sense any malicious intention from Hweol just now? However, Kim Yun responds with a serious face. No. Surprisingly, he was sincere, she says. Hong Fan, straining his mind, interprets Kim Yun's language and delivers the message to John Myung-hoon. Hearing this, John Myung-hoon looks slightly surprised and stares in the direction Hweol left. What is this? I've heard about his tainted soul filling the heavens from Eun-hyun. I know of that Sea Dragon King's schemes and cunning. And yet, that sly man just walked away after offering a sincere prayer for Yunwei out of goodwill. Unable to understand, John Myung-hoon stares towards the place Hweol has left. Leaving the hall built for Yunwei, Hweol hides one of his clones in the darkness. Then, in the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens, Hweol hardens his expression. I've been exposed to Ran. Now that brat will try to delve even deeper into tainted soul filling the heavens. Hweol's vertical pupils slit further as a cold look spreads across his face. Splatter. In the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens. From Hweol's 7 orifices, black liquid begins to stream. At a glance, it almost resembles blood, an evident sign that his tainted soul filling the heavens is distorting. The backlash is too severe. The entirety of tainted soul filling the heavens is shaking. Rumble, 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 rumble. It is exactly as it seems. Starting from the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens, the configurations spread across the entire universe begin to tremble. Yet, Hweol laughs. Ho ho. As expected, any action that violates the oath has a massive impact on the immortal art. Ho ho. What Hweol did just now is simple. He sincerely prayed for Yunwei, as Kim Yun had detected, a sincere benevolence, a very simple and primal emotion, nothing more. And yet, because of it, his tainted soul filling the heavens is shaking. The die is cast. Hweol slits his vertical pupils and grits his teeth, smiling. I have staked everything on this act that's capable of overturning the foundation of my tainted soul filling the heavens. Over. He looks in a certain direction. It is not towards Glass Cedarwood Mountain, where Eun-hyun resides. It is towards where Ran is. Because Eun-hyun has already grown too large to be part of his plan. He needs someone who can fit in his plan. And that person is none other than Hweol's main body. Ran. It is Ran. After Hweol has left, Ran's eyes gleam. I see. With a slightly flushed face, he approaches Yunwei and prays sincerely. Please, let Elder Yunwei's lifespan increase, even if just a little. Oh heavens above. Hweol had said it, that he is a natural-born sacred vessel. And Ran is Hweol's main body, which means that, although Ran has yet to perceive it, he, too, is a sacred vessel. Therefore, with Ran's wishes, Yunwei's lifespan can surely extend. Even with Great Master Kim Yun's awareness, she didn't notice any trick Hweol might have pulled. Additionally, Senior Eun-hyun said he is always watching Hweol and me. If Hweol had done something suspicious, he would have noticed. Since neither of them has said anything, it means there's no problem with praying, as Hweol said. Ran prays for Yunwei with a heart of benevolence. Please, let her remain by their side for just a little longer. At the same time, as Ran reflects on the heart of benevolence, he realizes something. Ran leaves Yunwei's chamber alongside the others. John Myung-hoon and the rest immediately leave to cultivate or fulfill their assigned tasks, but Ran holds back one of them. It is Kim Yun. Great Master Kim Yun, I think I finally understand now. At those words, Kim Yun, who was about to fly into the sky, turns back and lands in front of Seo Ran, asking, I don't know why Seo Hweol suddenly appeared in front of me and showed me so openly. But I finally understand. Seo Ran, somehow, feels a sense of relief. I have at last understood the weakness of tainted soul filling the heavens. And I think I can also finally be certain of the existence known as Seo Ran. Somewhere far away in the astral realm, on a certain planet, a woman is painting. She is a being named Seo Hai, and also a being who split from Oh Hai Seo. Suddenly, Seo Hai looks up at the sky. Have you found the answer, Seo Ran? Since splitting off from Oh Hai Seo, she has been pondering for thousands of years. Along with Seo Ran's tainted soul filling the heavens configuration attached to her soul, she has been contemplating on their identity together with Seo Ran. And after thousands of years, Seo Ran has found the answer to the question of his existence. The deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens. Within that deep darkness, an incarnation of Seo Hweol dressed in a dark red robe, formed from the overlapping wills of countless Seo wheels, crawls across the floor, gritting his teeth. Buduk, badudaduk, baduduk. Black liquid seeps from his seven orifices and across his body. The smile that had once hung on Seo Hweol's lips has disappeared, and with an expressionless face, he writhes in pain. Badudaduk. Seo Hweol clutches his chest and frantically scratches the floor of the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens with his hands. Each time, his fingernails tear off, and black pus widely flows from his body. Even with an expression devoid of emotion, Seo Hweol is clearly suffering. Have you established it, Seo Ran? Seo Ran speaks with certainty before Kim Yun, the Heaven Tribe's Seo Eun-hyun, who is not conducting the advancement ritual. The martial artist Seo Eun-hyun, and Kim Yun and Hong Fan, who are present, all listen to Seo Ran's answer. While spending time with the children of the Candle Dragon race, remembering them, and holding them in my heart, and while spending time with Seo Hai, while spending time with Ho. Finally, today, I understand. No, perhaps, I think it's more accurate to say that what I already knew has finally been established today. Seo Ran smiles brightly. The weakness of tainted soul filling the heavens is benevolence. Though tainted soul filling the world manipulates the world as it pleases, it cannot invade the power of benevolence. That is why, through my mother's benevolence and love, I was born into this world. Kim Yun silently smiles and holds Seo Ran's hand. Hong Fan looks at Seo Ran with a subtle, ambiguous smile. It doesn't matter if I am not truly Seo Ran. I have already received endless benevolence and love from innumerable connections, and I have also given it. As long as the fact that I have shared benevolence remains, I am Seo Ran. As if finally free from the burdens that had weighed upon his heart, Seo Ran smiles brighter than ever. In the distant astral realm, through Seo Ran's tainted soul filling the heavens configuration, Seo Hai, who shares Seo Ran's enlightenment, sheds tears. I see Seo Ran. Then, I too am Seo Hai. With a face that somehow seems much more at ease, she looks up at the stars in the sky. Thank you, Seo Ran. Center of glass cedarwood mountain. Seo Eun-hyun warmly smiles as he witnesses Seo Ran's enlightenment. In his mind, the image of a comrade and friend from long ago. Someone who was also like a child to him. Seo Li flickers faintly. Deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens. Seo Hweol, who has been writhing in agony while vomiting black pus, finally clinches the ground and rises. His pupils, which were once merely slit, are now entirely drenched in a dark red hue, gleaming ominously. At last, I have reached it. The relic of the guard dog, Feng. Clench. Seo Hweol gathers dark red energy into his left hand and clutches the void. While Seo Eun-hyun, Kim Yun, and the others all focus on Seo Ran, who has achieved great enlightenment and finally revealed the weakness of tainted soul filling the heavens, establishing his own version of it. Seo Hweol deceives everyone's attention and reaches the something he has been aiming for. It may have been sheer luck, a heavenly fortune, but Seo Hweol succeeds. Seo Hweol's consciousness finally pierces through the distracted consciousness of Seo Eun-hyun during his advancement, diving deep into his heart essence world. There, he reaches something embedded in one corner of the colorless sword enclosure. Long buried and nearly forgotten due to not being useful, Yuan Li's memento. Yuan Yu's blood body begins to emit a crimson light. Inside the colorless sword enclosure, Oh Hai Seo, who has wandered the desolate wastelands of the colorless sword enclosure for thousands of years, suddenly looks up at the sky with disheveled hair and cries out, Allah, Aya, Awa. Tears fill her eyes. Oh Hai Seo, whose emotions have been faint since birth, cannot help but have even those faint emotions burst out explosively at the signal that came after thousands of years. For thousands of years, she has wandered this desolate land, driven half-mad by fear and loneliness brought upon by Seo Eun-hyun. In that situation, Hweol's signal has reached her. Hweol, who had nearly forgotten the human language, collapses on the spot and bursts into tears. From the grasp of Hweol, the terrifying old monster who seeks to destroy the world. Hweol, the sea dragon king who inherited the bloodline of the sacred sea dragon race, connects with Hweol, the saintess of myriad beasts, who has been imprisoned for millennia. Hweol, who has gambled for a sliver of hope to free himself from the grasp of Hweol, who wields the universe, now resolves to struggle with all his might against Hweol, who has become like a god. Hweol's desperate rebellion begins. Author's note: Hweol's spring has begun. If it fails, it's a rebellion. Chapter 523, Hweol's origin, 4. Chapter 523, Hweol's origin, 4. Hweol's Plan 1. The first plan involves using Yuanyu. For some reason, Hweol seems to feel a certain longing when looking at Yuanyu, and because of this, he still hasn't completely discarded Yuanyu's blood body. He merely embedded it deep within his colorless sword enclosure. Hweol took advantage of that point. From the moment Hweol reincarnated into the body of the Candle Dragon race, Hweol gradually shaped Hweol, essentially High, to resemble Yuan Li as Hweol remembers him, and made it resonate with Yuanyu's blood body embedded within Hweol's colorless sword enclosure. At that time, High and Yuanyu were learning compatible methods, and through High, it was possible to harmonize with the spiritual energy waves emitted by Yuanyu, thereby activating the secret art within Yuanyu. Devilish spell Tainted Soul Sacred Blood, Zhang Sungshit. Borrowing the power of the Blood Yin realm, this spell combines the Blood Yin realm's devilish energy with Hweol's Tainted Soul filling the heavens to transform the area where Tainted Soul Holy Sacred is activated into a dimensional gate. He modified it into a method called Summoning Wind, Sacred Blood Transformation, and had Hweol learn it. Hweol even slightly lowered its difficulty and power to make Yuanli learn it as well. However, because Hweol did not cultivate Yuanyu's blood body through Summoning Wind, Sacred Blood Transformation, it created a tricky situation. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. After all, the very spell constituting Yuanyu's blood body originates from the Blood Yin realm, making its degree of resonance with the Blood Yin realm no different from having learned Summoning Wind, Sacred Blood Transformation. Thus, Hweol's original plan was to resonate High and Yuanyu's blood devilish energy to activate Tainted Soul's sacred blood within their bodies. If successful, Hweol's heart essence world, specifically, the interior of the colorless sword enclosure, would be immediately pierced by a dimensional gate directly connecting to the Blood Yin realm. Hweol would then be captured by Blood Yin and reduced to his immortal treasure. No matter how much he uses his 3 great ultimates or whatever to exert entering Nirvana-level power, resisting when a dimensional gate connecting to a true immortal is opened would be impossible. However, Hweol believes that the success rate of this plan is not high. The biggest issue is the changed attitude of Blood Yin. Blood Yin, who should have normally charged forward with frenzied madness at the mere sight of the karmic fire, instead observed calmly as Hweol revealed both the karmic fire and clear scale armor. This is far from a normal situation. Thus, Hweol calculated a low success rate for Plan 1 due to Blood Yin's change in attitude. On top of that, with Hweol being captured by Hweol, the plan to activate Tainted Soul's sacred blood through Yuanyu's blood body also became difficult. However, an opportunity arose. Hweol showed an opening. Moreover, if paired with this new plan, the success rate of the first plan would significantly increase. I've made contact with Hweol. Hweol whispers into the mind of Hweol, who has wandered endlessly in the same space for thousands of years, trapped inside Hweol's colorless sword enclosure. First, it was wise of you not to call my name carelessly. Oh, Aya. What? Of course, the reason Hweol didn't call Hweol's name is simply because, after wandering for thousands of years in solitude, she momentarily forgot human language. But to Hweol, such details are irrelevant. Hweol doesn't seem to have noticed. He likely interprets your outburst as part of your erratic behavior. For now, just follow my instructions. If you do, we can finally gain freedom and drag that Hweol, who is soaring high in the sky, down into the mud. At Hweol's whisper, Hweol nods tearfully. Whoom. After quickly conveying several instructions to Hweol cuts off. The blood body of Yuan Li, which I prepared for activating Tainted Soul Sacred Blood, can only be used for communication for now. But it doesn't matter. Having already made contact with Hweol, he left behind Tainted Soul filling the heavens in her heart essence. He can now communicate with her whenever needed. Though there is a risk of being detected while communicating within Seo Eunhyun's heart essence, it doesn't matter. I have polluted myself. In doing so, Seo Hweol even defiled himself while offering a prayer to Yunwei, and Seo Ran did the same, also offering a prayer to Yunwei. Though Seo Hweol denies the heart, he broke his vow and acknowledged his emotions, offering a prayer filled with the heart of benevolence to Yunwei. Because of this, Seo Hweol's tainted soul filling the heavens embedded itself in Yunwei not as a configuration, but as the form of a heart. The extent of the shock and pain Seo Hweol experienced in this process was irrelevant. What matters is, Seo Hweol's heart is embedded in Yunwei, and Seo Ran's heart is also embedded in Yunwei in the exact same way. The hearts of Seo Hweol and Seo Ran, at long last, have come together inside Yunwei. And so, Seo Hweol waits for the moment when the heart is amplified to the peak, needing only to make contact with Yunwei once again. If Seo Hweol and Seo Ran's hearts and prayers, now embedded in Yunwei, make contact, then Seo Hweol and Seo Ran will finally be able to reconnect. So, when will that moment of the heart's peak amplification arrive? The answer is simple. It is when living beings face death. Seo Hweol does not yet understand the great enlightenment that the heart is ultimately death. However, through experiential learning, he has learned that when the death of a living being approaches, its emotions are amplified to their peak. It doesn't necessarily have to be their own death. The death of someone close to them is enough to amplify a living being's emotions. Therefore, Seo Hweol smiles faintly. Yunwei's descendant. Yunjin, was it? That would do nicely. Let's bring Yunjin before Yunwei's eyes and kill him. If that happens, Yunwei's emotions will undoubtedly amplify to its peak. That moment will be Seo Hweol's opportunity to connect with Seo Ran. Though most of Seo Eunhyun's comrades are said to be staying in cedarwood painting, a few remain outside. A chief example is Yunjin. Yunjin is diligently cultivating the lightning path method in the human race district of Cedarwood Grove in the bright cold realm. This decision was not Seo Eunhyun's, but Yunjin's own will. Yunjin believes it is necessary to remain in the bright cold realm, observe the situation, and ensure there is a place for Seo Eunhyun's group to return to if Seo Eunhyun is defeated. Pajajijijal. Having already reached the 4-axis stage, Yunjin changes genders using the Taiji quaking lightning body and generates lightning as he surveys Cedarwood Grove. Cedarwood Grove and its human race district are so peaceful, yet the outside of the bright cold realm is said to be a war zone. To be honest, it's hard for him to believe. No, even Seo Eunhyun was just a senior in the nascent soul stage at a similar level to himself a few thousand years ago. Yet before he realized it, Seo Eunhyun became a sacred master and is now waging war across the entire universe. In such a situation, the only thing Yunjin can do is his best to prevent public opinion about Seo Eunhyun from worsening within the human race territory. Of course, it isn't so much that Yunjin is trying his best, but rather that Seo Hweol is working desperately to conceal Yunjin's existence from Baekwon. Otherwise, Yunjin would have long been captured by Baekwon and used as a hostage. Whether Yunjin knows this or not, he adjusts his black and white hair and prepares to resume his Taiji quaking lightning body cultivation. It is at that moment. It has been a while, Taoist Yunjin. Before Yunjin's eyes, Seo Hweol appears with a ho-ho. Yunjin bows his waist to greet Seo Hweol. Ah, Sir Sea Dragon King. It has been a while. As far as Yunjin knows, Seo Eunhyun and Yunwei don't hold a favorable opinion of Seo Hweol. However, from Yunjin's perspective, Seo Hweol is one of Seo Eunhyun's loyal followers who takes care of Seo Eunhyun's affairs, so Yunjin doesn't harbor much ill will towards him. Or rather, it would be more accurate to say that Seo Hweol adjusted things to ensure that Yunjin doesn't feel any hostility toward him. Seo Hweol smiles faintly and extends a hand toward Yunjin. That aside, Taoist Yunjin. Have you heard that Taoist Yunwei's body is unwell? Ah yes, I heard about it thanks to the letter Sir Sea Dragon King delivered. I was already thinking of visiting the ancestor, but with the war between the bright cold realm and cedarwood painting, it doesn't seem possible right now. Ho! Seo Hweol shakes his head at Yunjin's words. Ho-ho, that is not necessarily the case, Taoist Yun. While it is true that there is war, it is entirely possible to enter cedarwood painting by passing through other realms that are unaffected by the conflict. For example, the Nether Ghost realm or the Bloodine realm. Ah, so there was a way like that. Come to think of it, the Nether Ghost realm was also once the headquarters of the Wuji religious order. Yunjin nods as he rises from his seat. In that case, is it possible to leave immediately? If the ancestor doesn't have much time left, it would be best to depart as soon as possible. As expected of Taoist Yunjin. Such deep filial piety. In that case, come with this king. We will pass through the Bloodine realm to directly enter cedarwood painting. That sounds excellent, Elder Sea Dragon King. Wawoom. At Yunjin's words, Hweol guides him into a secluded area of cedarwood grove and begins forming hand seals. Kaya, ominous blood devilish energy begins to radiate from the surroundings, and the space around them begins to distort. Hweol is faintly opening an entrance to the blood-in realm using his authority. Blood sacrifice consuming style. Wawoom. A crimson circle gradually appears before Hweol and Yunjin's eyes. Hweol sharpens his vertical pupils with a piercing gaze. The gate to the blood-in realm. I'll open it in Eunhyun's heart essence using Ohio and Yuan Li's blood body. Then, using the opportunity when Eunhyun falls into chaos, I will take Yunjin to Yunwei. If I kill her descendant before her eyes, my plan will be completely. It is at that moment. Yunjin's chattering voice pierces Hweol's ears. Haha. By the way, with this, I'll have visited all 6 middle realms except the purple gold realm. I'm curious to see how it will differ from the true devil realm. Hweol, aiming to gain Yunjin's favor, smiles kindly and speaks. Your experiences are truly broad, Taoist Yunjin. Come to think of it, didn't Taoist Yunjin once undertake an adventure with Taoist Yunwei, traveling from the bright cold realm to the nether ghost realm, then to the ancient force realm, and back to the bright cold realm? Yes, and before the golden divine heavenly thunder sect fell, I also traveled to the true devil realm with ancestor Yunwei. This king knows of that story as well. I've heard that, while evading pursuit from the golden divine heavenly thunder sect in the true devil realm, you and Taoist Yunwei installed a massive formation in one of the void spirit ponds there. Haha, it was the ancestor who set up the formation, so I don't know much about that. Instead, I just played with the local kids in the area. Ho ho, Taoist Yunjin is truly kind-hearted. To think you even cared for the children like that. Yunjin, as if embarrassed, twirls his hair around his finger and speaks. Rather than me being kind, it's more that Sacred Master Eunhyun has deep emotions. Back then, when he was at the nascent soul stage, he instructed me to consider the surrounding devil races even as we established the formation near the void spirit pond and to build friendly ties with them. He even entrusted me with gathering the devil race children and playing with them. It was a bit tiring to play with the devil race children at that time, but thinking back now, it's also a fond memory. Children do seem to have a way of clearing the heart, whether they're of the heaven tribe or the earth tribe. That's true. Although, among the devil race children, there were some mischievous ones who were already getting into romance and driving me crazy. I haven't even experienced romance yet myself. Ahaha, come to think of it, those kids were especially memorable. As Hweol opens the entrance to the blood-in realm, he asks, I see. What were those children like to leave such an impression? Well, ever since they were young, they were running around saying they'd get married when they grew up. At the time, they were just little children from the Batwing race and the Horned Devil race. But since both of those races are part of a rather famous lineage of devils, known for requiring 5,000 years to reach adulthood and their breeding cycles, I told them, if you truly want to unite as one, it's going to take quite a bit of time. But then Su-in and Hong-yun, those two rascals. Yunjin, who was excitedly chattering beside Hweol for a while, suddenly looks down at his own body, now transformed into a female form. Yunjin sucks in a sharp breath and bites his lip. Are you crazy, Yunjin? No matter how charming the Sea Dragon King is, what are you doing transforming into a woman right in front of him? Yunjin, grappling with serious concerns about his gender identity, looks up at Hweol. Indeed, Hweol is charming, to the point where just standing there silently is enough to steal one's heart. Of course, Yunjin doesn't realize that it's due to Hweol's tainted soul filling the heavens. He has no idea that because Hweol thinks, if Yunjin has a good enough impression of me to open up completely and entrust everything to me, he'll become useful. He has fallen for Hweol without even realizing it. But while Yunjin cannot comprehend the domain of such immortal arts, he can at least sense that something about Hweol is changing. By the way, Elder Sea Dragon King, are you feeling unwell by any chance? At Yunjin's question, Hweol erases the entrance to the blood-in realm. Uh-huh, Elder Hweol? Weren't we supposed to pass through the blood-in realm? Wake. Clench. Yunjin suddenly lets out a high-pitched scream as Hweol's hands grip both of Yunjin's shoulders with force. Hweol locks eyes with Yunjin, his vertically slit pupils meeting his, and wears the brightest smile he's ever shown. Indeed, I understand Taoist Yunjin's kindness well. To play with devil race children, with whom you barely know, to such an extent. This surname can't help but be deeply impressed by your virtuous character. By the way, perhaps it's because you're from the Earth tribe, but your grip strength is rather painful. Could you please let go? I understand. By the way, could you remind me once more where that void spirit pond was, the one where you performed such noble deeds? That is. As Hweol's face suddenly draws closer, Yunjin's cheeks flush red. Soon, with his eyes completely listing their focus, Yunjin divulges everything to Hweol. And, sometime later, Ho, Sir Sea Dragon King. If your face gets so close, it's embarrassing. Ho, is that so? I understand. Hweol releases Yunjin, who suddenly begins echoing his own laugh, and looks up at the sky. At last, Hweol's hand trembles violently. Yunjin, too, laughs with a ho, and looks up at the sky alongside Hweol. I've found it. All the Hweols in the universe smile radiantly, their bodies trembling as if in ecstasy. Even after scouring the bright cold realm for thousands of years and finding nothing. It turns out you found it first and smuggled it to the true devil realm through Hein Eum. Bloodine. Hweol laughs with bloodshot eyes. I've finally found it. The split soul of vast cold. Hweol clenches his fist while staring at the sky, his body quaking. The heavens are aiding me. It's done now. Hweol pushes Yunjin aside and melts into the darkness, disappearing from the spot. There's no need for cumbersome plans like opening the gate to the Bloodine realm. The power of vast cold is now in my hands. There's no longer any need to hold back my strength. I just need to proceed. Finishing his thoughts, Hweol moves through the darkness, heading towards an unknown destination. Normally, Hweol would have taken Yunjin along for efficiency, even if it wasn't strictly necessary. Yet, he deliberately leaves Yunjin behind. Without realizing how strange he has become, Hweol inexplicably smiles arrogantly as he vanishes. Yunwei opens her eyes. Deep into the night, she senses someone entering her chamber. Who is it? It is I, Taoist Yunwei. The Sacred Master has warned me that if you ever come to see me alone, it would be because you're scheming some vile plot. I was told not to engage with you. Leave. Yunwei responds without even glancing at Hweol. However, Hweol pays no attention to Yunwei's reaction and begins to speak. It seems the Sacred Master has already informed you about my tainted soul filling the heavens. In that case, you must also know that I could reach out to your descendant, Taoist Yunjin, at any time. Is it because you don't understand the true identity of the Sacred Master? You're quite bold. At the mention of Yunjin, Yunwei rises from her bed and looks at Hweol. Do you even know what kind of being the Sacred Master is? Even if that person wears the guise of a Sacred Master, they are an entity above the heavens. Or, at the very least, they are someone who carries out the will of such beings. Someone like you has gone against such a being. Do you understand what that means? Yunwei glares at Hweol with a grim expression. On the scales of fate, the lives of the likes of us can be toyed with whenever it will. Do you think you're threatening me right now? You're mistaken. As long as that being despises you, everything you do and every future you aim for are already within their grasp. Ho, how terrifying. However, that person is not an entity of true immortal rank as you believe him to be. I know this with absolute certainty. Hweol narrows his vertically slit pupils as he steps closer to Yunwei. I am someone who has glimpsed the dream of a true immortal. I know how those beings dream. And Eunhyun is absolutely not dreaming as a true immortal does. Therefore, while he may be connected to a true immortal rank existence, he is absolutely not a true immortal himself. In the first place, this sun and moon heavenly domain, unlike a proper heavenly domain, only has 3 true immortals. Clench. Hweol's grip brutally seizes Yunwei's jaw. However, Yunwei does not panic and instead looks directly at Hweol. This is merely a puppet prepared by the Sacred Master. Though crafted to perfectly resemble a mortal, it is no more than a backup vessel. My true soul resides in the shrine within the head realm. The location does not matter. After all, as long as there is attraction force, anything I desire will fall into my hands. It's only around this point that Yunwei senses something amiss. What is this? Hweol is acting so suspiciously, yet why hasn't the Sacred Master reacted at all? You're having such obvious thoughts, Taoist Yunwei. He read my mind. Yunwei flinches in surprise, her body shrinking. Hweol gently smiles and strokes Yunwei's head. The Sacred Master is likely quite preoccupied right now, because the Ohiseo who was quiet all this time has suddenly gone mad. Although Ohiseo's abilities and authority are nothing extraordinary, when applied creatively, there's nothing for her to fear. MMPH. You want to call John Myung-hoon? Ho, it's useless. Unless it's someone of Eunhyun's caliber, none of his comrades, unless the Mad Lord were to resurrect, can stop me. No, even if the Mad Lord were to come back to life now, I would still win. Hweol pulls something from his sleeve while still gripping Yunwei's jaw. It is someone's head. Despite being cleanly decapitated, the head is alive. With its eyes gouged out, it belongs to a devil race. The head of a woman of the Batwing race, despite being severed, wails mournfully, calling out a name in the language of the devil realm. Hweol crushes the head without hesitation, extracting the soul within and forcing it into Yunwei's head. Womb. The soul absorbed through Yunwei's Bai point flows through her upper dantian, then emits all its spiritual energy through the area between her eyebrows. Yunwei groans as she feels her head somehow clearing along with the sensation of her upper dantian burning. I once visited the serving command palace with the Mad Lord. While the Mad Lord planned for the wonderfully mysterious fortress, I planned for something different. Womb. Reason fades from Yunwei's eyes, and in her drunk-like state, she begins to pitifully call out for someone. Oh, Han1. Where did you go, Han1? Still wearing his gentle smile, Hweol clasps a hand behind his back, grabs Yunwei by her hair, drags her out of bed, and waves his hand. Quang. And in front of Hweol stands Kim Yun with a hardened face, leading John Myung-hoon, Kang Min-hee, Kim Young-hoon, Oh Hyun-suk, and others. John Myung-hoon glares at Hweol with a reddened face and speaks. I'll count to 10. Release Yunwei immediately within that time. Ho ho. There's no need to rush so urgently. Why not chat with me for a moment? 10. I've counted. I'll kill you, Hweol. Immediately after, John Myung-hoon charges at Hweol. That's when it happens. Womb. Kururum. A bolt of lightning powerful enough to shatter a planet descends, but John Myung-hoon's eyes widen in shock. Distortion. Space distorts due to attraction force. John Myung-hoon's single strike, twisted under the influence of attraction force, fails to reach Hweol and veers off in the wrong direction. Hweol, still holding Yunwei's hair, spreads his arms wide and laughs. If you don't want to chat with me, then it can't be helped. How? How can someone like you wield this level of attraction force? As John Myung-hoon watches Hweol drag Yunwei by her hair towards an unknown destination, his eyes become bloodshot. This can't be happening. There's no way his tainted soul filling the heavens can handle this level of attraction force. Unless he's completely brainwashed cedarwood painting and put it within this grasp, it's impossible. How could someone without immortal arts specializing in attraction force do such a thing? Hweol. Stop immediately. Kururum. John Myung-hoon transforms into the three-headed six-armed lightning god and shouts at Hweol. However, his voice does not reach Hweol. Peaceful cloud continent. Two-sided mountain range. Inside a large manor, one of Hweol's clones smiles faintly. How surprising, Han1. To think you'd pretend to be forbidden from cultivating by the sacred master while secretly practicing immortal arts. Well, I suppose it makes sense. Sunlight, rain, heat, cold, wind, and time. The immortal art of various omens is something integration stage cultivators should naturally learn. So you've been diligently practicing all along. However, Han1, who hears Hweol's words, does not respond. It's because he is bloodied and battered, his top knot tightly seized by Hweol. Han1's tongue has already been ripped out by Hweol, leaving him unable to speak. Ho ho. If you don't wish to respond, it can't be helped. No matter. I will assist you. Womb. Hweol looks at the miserable Han1 with a gentle smile, and then pulls a head from his sleeve. It is the head of a male from the horned devil race. This head, too, has its eyes gouged out and mournfully calls out to someone in the language of the devil race. Crunch. Womb. Hweol crushes the devil race head without hesitation, extracting the soul within and infusing it into Han1's Bai point. And in the next moment, Han1's eyes snap wide open. Shortly thereafter, tears of blood stream down his face as he cries out. Chchch. Chionra Feng. Kururum. Deafening roars erupt from various points on Hweol's face as his body begins to shatter apart. Simultaneously, from the cracks on his face, something resembling black pus oozes profusely, a clear indication of being shaken. Yet, Hweol remains unconcerned, smiling as he grabs Han1's top knot and drags him outside. Do-do-do-do-do. The shout earlier affected not only Hweol. The entire world is shaking. Is it because of the original owner of the phenomena extinguishing mantra? Ho-ho. Gik. Gijigik. Gijigik. At the same time, an immense attraction force begins to form around Han1. It seems to be an attraction force meant to merge with someone far away. Hweol looks up at the sky with a faint smile. From the star-shattering stage and onwards, that is, the stage where one gradually approaches the principles of true immortals, the heart begins to transform into attraction force. However, this means that for true immortals, attraction force is essentially the heart. When one thinks about how immortal arts activated by attraction force and those activated by the heart are fundamentally the same, it's a simple principle. Gijigik. Han1 and the someone far away. The attraction force with Yunwei begins to grow stronger. In short, being able to control attraction force means being able to move the hearts of true immortals. The world is ultimately nothing more than a dream woven by true immortals. We are merely their toys, clowns performing on their stage. Therefore, our own hearts are ultimately meaningless. The only thing that holds meaning is the heart of the being that dreams. Hweol, his face somehow bloodshot, looks up at the sky. Indeed, this is not just a soliloquy. He is speaking to Eunhyun, who is no different from the entire world itself. Attraction force is essentially the heart. Therefore, if I obtain the ultimate attraction force, all the hearts in the world will fall into my grasp. In the next moment, Hweol stretches out his hand. All the Hweols hidden throughout cedarwood painting form hand seals in unison. Gijigijigik. The names of In and Yun imprinted upon Yunwei and Hanwon's minds wail and strive to merge with each other. Simultaneously, an overwhelming attraction force arises within cedarwood painting, and at the moment when that attraction force reaches its peak, pat it, Hweol disappears from cedarwood painting, and the place where Hweol reappears is none other than the colorless sword enclosure. It is the place where Hweol, acting under Hweol's orders, rampages madly. Karurum. Ah ha ha. You're here, Hweol. As soon as she sees Hweol, Hweol throws herself into the arms of one of his clones. Hweol pats Hweol's head and looks towards the direction she came from. There stands a massive altar. The altar is engraved with countless carvings of immortal beasts, and the eyes of the immortal beasts all glow simultaneously. And at the very top of all the immortal beasts are two figures. One is an immortal beast shrouded in deep darkness, and the other is an immortal beast in human form. Among them, the figure of the immortal beast in human form is moving under the influence of Hweol's authority. Is the ritual preparation complete, Hweol? Yes, Hweol. I did everything as you said. I sacrificed my lifespan and offered it to the High Spirit Grand Tao Nine Heavens overseeing fate, preserving life, celestial great emperor. That being, as the covenanter and arbiter, promised to hide the fate here. Did you bring them? Hweol smiles faintly. One of Hweol's clones is holding Yunwei by her hair. Another drags Hanwon by his topknot. And yet another of Hweol's clones is gripping Ran by his nape and bringing him to this very spot. Finally, we have succeeded, Hweol. By targeting the moment when the attraction force of In and Yun reaches its peak, Hweol connected to Ran through the hearts of himself and Ran, imprinted within Yunwei, finally capturing Ran. Hweol, with a face brimming with joy, clings to Hweol's embrace and weeps. Teach, then we can leave now, right, Hweol? Now we can finally leave and really escape from the belly of this Eunhyun, right? Hweol. I can't make any guarantees, but I will make it so. Now then. Clench. Hweol grips Ran's head and laughs. Disappear. Fake. Karararak. At that exact moment, all of the Hweols, except for the ones holding Yunwei and Hanwon, are sucked into Ran's body. However, even as Hweol's elaborate plans near completion, Hweol cannot bring herself to be happy. Hweol, you said it was all coming together. But why? Why is that Ran able to remain so composed, even with you standing before him? Ran is showing no signs of fear whatsoever. Instead, he is smiling warmly. And then, Urarum. Hick. The colorless sword enclosure shakes violently, and Eunhyun's figure appears before Hweol. It is Eunhyun wielding the colorless glass sword, with Eunhyun draped in winged garments, standing behind. With a hardened expression, Eunhyun speaks. You will never succeed, Hweol. Chapter 524, Hweol's Memories, 1. The two Eunhyun stare with hardened expressions at Hweol and Hweol, who has entered Ran's body. As soon as Hweol sees Eunhyun's face, she is so terrified that she hiccups, but still raises both hands in the air. I plead to the High Spirit Grand Tao Nine Heavens overseeing fate, preserving life, celestial great emperor. I beg thee, as the owner of names and the god of mankind, please reveal the real from the fake. At the same time, pale white vapor coils around the altar. The vapor, responding to Hweol's plea, sternly blocks Eunhyun from entering, as if declaring that no one may step inside while the distinction between truth and falsehood is being determined. However, Hweol can feel the gaze of the two Eunhyuns piercing through the steam toward her. That gaze, for some reason, their terrifying gaze penetrates the vapor and fixes directly on Hweol. Suppressing her fear, Hweol sneers at the Eunhyun outside the barrier. Ha ha ha. What are you doing, Eunhyun? Come on, do something. Try anything. You're currently flustered because I called in all the immortal beasts and can't do anything. You can never enter here. Never. To us, you're Then, Seo Eunhyun speaks. I'm sorry, Suin. Hongyun. Once Yunjin and Yunwei met you too. I should have foreseen your whereabouts being inevitably discovered by Seo Hweol. It's all my fault. Step. Seo Eunhyun begins walking into the barrier. Oh Hyeol collapses to the ground in shock. What? How? The only apology I can offer you is to remember you and to honor your deaths by eradicating Seo Hweol and Oh Hyeol, the ones who killed you. This is all I can do. Forgive me. Step. Oh Hyeol trembles in terror as Seo Eunhyun cuts through the vapor and approaches. She grabs and shakes Seo Rant's body violently. Seo Hweol. He's coming. He's heskiming. Seo Eunhyun does not restrain his rank out of consideration for Oh Hyeol. He fully reveals the rank of his main body, which has reached the sacred vessel stage. That alone is enough to cause Oh Hyeol to start foaming at the mouth and cry out for Seo Hweol. Finally, Seo Eunhyun's form pierces through the curtain of vapor and arrives before Oh Hyeol. Unable to endure Seo Eunhyun's rank, Oh Hyeol collapses to the ground, trembling uncontrollably. Ignoring her, Seo Eunhyun gently strokes Seo Rant's head. Seo Eunhyun closes his eyes for a moment. A memory surfaces from not long ago. Senior, I have something to say. What is it, Seo Rant? Seo Hweol will eventually try to devour me. If I disappear, Seo Hweol will also completely collapse. As time passes, Senior and I will grow more familiar with tainted soul filling the heavens, and Seo Hweol will gradually be left with fewer options. He will try to make his move before that happens. Indeed, when that time comes, please do not stop Seo Hweol. What? When he first heard those words, he thought it was preposterous nonsense. What nonsense? Do you even understand the horrors of tainted soul filling the heavens? There's no need to worry. Because of that, Seo Eunhyun dismissed Seo Rant's words and resolved to face Seo Hweol alone. But the eyes of Seo Rant at that time were filled with certainty unlike any before. Moreover, his heart was clearer and brighter than ever before. I have already become a body that cannot be harmed by tainted soul filling the heavens. Seo Hweol is likely going to take a gamble in order to face Senior, but his gamble will fail, because Seo Eunhyun looked into Seo Rant's eyes. He saw the will residing in his heart. It was the same will Seo Eunhyun had learned from Chongmun Ryong on Penglai Island. It was a will capable of reaching immortal arts. Because I have come to know that I have been loved. I am Seo Rant. Even if I step into tainted soul filling the heavens, my mother, my master, Senior, Shurho, Great Master Younghoon, Miss Book, Great Master Kim Yun, Great Master Min Hee, Great Master Hyunsuk, Hong Fan, Elder Yun Wei, and others. All the connections I've made thus far have given me love. I am Seo Rant. Even if I enter tainted soul filling the heavens, that will never change. Immortal arts change the world with the heart alone. He felt that power, far stronger than the immortal arts used by ordinary cultivators that change the world through attraction force. Seo Eunhyun granted Seo Rant's request. Furthermore, if it's you, Senior, even if I am devoured by Seo Hweol, wouldn't you still be able to overcome him? Seo Rant ultimately extracted a promise from Seo Eunhyun. Please do not worry about me, Senior. And, if by chance I should fall and be consumed by Seo Hweol, I ask that you avenge me in my stead. I believe that Senior is more than capable of doing so. Seo Eunhyun recalls Seo Rant's smile. Will you promise me? Clench. Seo Eunhyun clenches his fist. Oh Hyeol. No, Def Knight Alita finitely Hweol will when Seo Hweol will freem so well will properly claim his body and this altar you've summoned. It must be that, isn't it? Seo Eunhyun slowly gazes at the altar. The reason he wasn't able to properly respond a moment ago was because Seo Hweol used Oh Hyeol's power to wield her authority in her place and summon the power of the Owner of Names. Because of the aftermath of the Owner of Names, as authority, Seo Eunhyun had nearly failed his advancement ritual to the entering Nirvana stage, leaving him temporarily unable to suppress the chaos caused by Oh Hyeol and Seo Hweol. That's all. Seo Eunhyun analyzes the altar and begins to slowly dismantle the one summoned by Oh Hyeol. Are you using the power of the immortal beasts to trace back their strength one by one until you reach and can borrow power from the one at the pinnacle, the former immortal beast king? Quadragigic. As Seo Eunhyun clenches his fist, the altar summoned by Oh Hyeol instantly crumbles into dust. However, the power of the vapor still envelopes them completely. Seo Eunhyun, interpreting the lingering power of the vapor and the spell circulating within it, speaks to Oh Hyeol, whose body is beginning to sprout glass all over. I can see through your plan. The former immortal beast king, also known by the title, Owner of Names. You are trying to use them to determine who between Seo Rant and Seo Hweol is the fake and erase one of their names. Isn't that right? Seo Eunhyun looks down at Oh Hyeonseo and smiles. But have you never considered this, Oh Hyeonseo? What exactly determines the standard for deciding the fake? At Seo Eunhyun's words, Oh Hyeonseo, despite trembling as glass sprouts from her entire body, raises herself shakily. In the end, whoever possesses the main body will likely be deemed the real one. But why assume Seo Ran would lose the main body to Seo Hweol? From the start, as she looks up at Seo Eunhyun, who gazes down at her with a sneer, Oh Hyeonseo grits her teeth as she trembles in terror. Why did you assume Seo Ran would be determined as the fake? Did you ever consider the possibility that Seo Hweol might be the fake? A being with a heart is a fake? Seo Eunhyun looks at Seo Ran's face, his eyes gleaming. A being with a heart can never be a fake. Therefore, I believe in you, Seo Ran. Defeat Seo Hweol and come out. Deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens. Inside, Seo Ran wears a peaceful smile. Dark red shadows writhe, attempting to invade Seo Ran's body, but they cannot penetrate the warm light radiating from within Seo Ran's heart essence. Seo Ran smiles softly and gazes warmly at the darkness before him. It seems I am the victor. Grandfather Seo Hweol, no? Seo Hweol. Your darkness cannot invade me, because I am loved. Seo Hweol cuts off Seo Ran's words and gazes at him with an expressionless face. That's right. I do not know what you experienced in the past, but your darkness will never be able to consume me. I have received the hearts of so many people. Therefore, as long as this heart resides within me, I will never disappear. Ding. Seo Ran looks up at the sky of darkness. Chithie, vapor. Before a colossal giant of vapor. At some point, they arrive there. The giant of vapor holds a scale in one hand, and Seo Ran and Seo Hweol each occupy one side of the scale's plates, staring at each other. The plate holding Seo Hweol begins to sink lower, while the one holding Seo Ran gradually rises higher. I am the real one. Therefore, admit defeat, Seo Hweol. Huh. Then, Seo Hweol smiles. It is not his usual gentle smile, exposing his teeth and awkwardly moving his muscles to form a grin. Seo Hweol's signature. Sincere smile. You pathetic thing, what do you even know? Seo Eunhyun looks down at Oh Hyeonseo, who has crawled slowly up to his ankles, even as glass protrudes from her entire body. Waha. Trembling from the rank emanating from Seo Eunhyun, Oh Hyeonseo continues crawling. Slowly and slowly. Then, she lifts her head and speaks to Seo Eunhyun. Rowing. What is wrong? Seo Eunhyun looks down at Oh Hyeonseo with a detached expression. Oh Hyeonseo smiles. It's not simply an altar built to reach the owner of names. And the reason you're telling me this? You. Among your comrades, isn't there someone you've forgotten? At those words, Seo Eunhyun flinches. Then, as Seo Eunhyun sweeps his consciousness rapidly across the entire cedarwood painting, his face twists like a fierce, evil spirit. Quajajijic. Seo Eunhyun grabs Oh Hyeonseo by the collar, glaring at her intensely. Return. Him. Immediately. I can't do that. Even though she is trembling in fear of Seo Eunhyun, she does not move. Instead, she simply smiles. Then, under her shadow, a fragment of the altar that Seo Eunhyun destroyed. The one fragment that depicts the immortal beast Heavenly Fox, Tinku, shines ominously. Deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens. At the same time, the place where the real and the fake are being distinguished before the owner of names. Seo Ran widens his eyes as he looks at the someone who appears there. It is Ho, using Oh Hyeonseo to confuse the sacred master's eyes, and while his focus is distracted, using the authority of the immortal beast Heavenly Fox to bring the fox race soul that can be considered its distant descendant. Seo Hweol snaps his fingers with a face devoid of any emotion. In the next moment, Seo Hweol's tainted soul filling the heavens begins to envelop Ho's soul and rise. Immediately after, a horrifying scream echoes from within the sphere of tainted soul filling the heavens that envelopes Ho. From now on, I will torture your beloved. Seo Hweol. Seo Ran's face twists violently. At the same time, the light emanating from Seo Ran's heart essence flickers and wavers. Seo Ran forces himself to maintain composure as he looks at him. Seo Hweol raises the corners of his mouth, looking at Seo Ran. Why are you so concerned with that? It's meaningless. Do you really believe you love that thing? You're wrong. It's simply because I poured all the maternal nature within me into you that you took it upon yourself to claim to be a female. It's only because you grew up with all positive connections severed by me that you fell into a state of affection deprivation. With each word he utters, the light within Seo Ran shakes violently. You do not love it, and it does not love you either. That thing simply fell to your tainted soul filling the heavens while being beaten by the one named Kim Young-hoon. It fell in love with tainted soul filling the heavens, not you. It's a false connection. You, trapped in affection deprivation, placed tainted soul filling the heavens on that fox race to seek an outlet for the maternal nature you had suppressed within yourself. It's no different from a burst of lust. Co ran, the hearts of connections, or whatnot. From the very beginning, you were never a being capable of giving or receiving any love. As Co Ran's light flickers, the darkness of tainted soul filling the heavens seems to dig further and further into him. Kiki Ike. The balance of the scale they stand on begins to shift. Co Ran descends, while Co Hweol rises. But all of a sudden, Sarurik, the rays of Co Ran's light stabilize. Co Hweol sees this and erases his smile. Do you not understand? From the beginning, you have never received any. No, Co Hweol. Co Ran meets Co Hweol's eyes. You're wrong. At the smile that blooms on Co Ran's face, Co Hweol's eyes tremble violently. I have never brainwashed Ho with tainted soul filling the heavens. And my sexual preferences are normal. I absolutely have no inclination to be penetrated by a cross-dressing male fox who likes men while moaning in pleasure. How vulgar. Yes, truly vulgar. But that's how it ended up. Co Ran smiles with a slightly embarrassed expression. It is Co Ran's sudden confession, one that does not match the atmosphere of the moment at all. Co Hweol, however, looks even colder. His gaze shifts to the tainted soul filling the heaven sphere, where Ho is trapped. Inside, the groans of agony have noticeably weakened. With just that one joke, he interfered with my tainted soul filling the heavens. Is he gradually becoming more adept at handling it? Co Hweol heightens his vigilance as he glares at Co Ran. Co Ran continues to speak. I didn't want my master to die, but my master trusted me and passed away. And even Elder John Hyang, who acted differently from how you wished, loved me before she departed. All of this points to one undeniable truth. Co Ran's eyes burn brightly in the darkness. Within the darkness, his gaze begins to drive away the darkness of tainted soul filling the heavens. A person's benevolence stands above tainted soul filling the heavens, above anything else. Even though Co Ran didn't wish for his master's death, Song Jin passed away without regret because he trusted and loved Co Ran. Even though Co Ran didn't initially accept Ho connected with him because Ho loved him so deeply that he transcended gender, race, and the brainwashing effects of tainted soul filling the heavens. Even when everyone shunned Co Ran under the influence of tainted soul filling the heavens, only John Hyang genuinely cherished him, preventing him from committing suicide. And Hweol, who was fated to be entirely corrupted by tainted soul filling the heavens, instead brought forth Co Ran in place of Co Hweol because of her love for him. I will not lose Co Hweol. Nothing about me is fake. Because it isn't fake, I believe Ho will endure. Because I, too, now love him. Pat it. The brilliant light bursting from Co Ran's eyes illuminates the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens. Kaiyayik. The scale upon which Co Ran and Co Hweol are seated evens out once again. Co Hweol stares at Co Ran expressionlessly. Love, huh? How pretentious. He speaks while glaring at Co Ran. You, who were so jealous over Yukyo, dare to speak of love? At Co Hweol's words, Co Ran breaks into a cold sweat. Now, this is where it truly begins. Co Ran steels his heart against the ominous malice emanating from Co Hweol. Co Hweol snaps his fingers with lifeless, hollow eyes. If you want it so much, I will show you. If you can bear this hatred, then it doesn't matter if I lose. Now, let us both recall my oath, my other self. Immediately after, in the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens, the memories of Co Hweol's childhood, carefully preserved there, engulfs Co Hweol and Co Ran. Ho, writhing in unbearable agony, suddenly regains his senses. This place it is the deepest depths tainted soul filling the heavens. Dragged here by Co Hweol and Ohaiseo's schemes, Ho was swept into this place by the authority of his distant ancestor, without even the chance to properly resist. Here, he finds himself caught between Co Hweol and Co Ran. He is merely a sacrifice in the battle between the two personas that form one essence. The last thing Ho remembers is that Co Ran, through a joke, briefly awakened his consciousness, and immediately afterward, Co Hweol moved a dark red wave to engulf both Co Ran and himself. What happened? The result is, as he regains his senses, he looks at Co Hweol and Co Ran, both seated upon the strange scale. At that moment, Kiik, the balance scale lurches, and Co Ran and Co Hweol both regain their senses and open their eyes. And Ho can only be struck with shock. He died. Co Ran. He has now died in the same dark red light as Co Hweol. Co Ran is shedding tears of blood. I see. So that's why I was jealous over her. That's why I wanted to destroy Yukyo so desperately. This world truly is Seo Ran's anguished gaze meets Shurho's. Shurho feels deep despair, pain, and sorrow in Seo Ran's eyes. Seo Ran. He likes Seo Ran. It's not because of something like tainted soul filling the heavens. He just likes him. From the day they first met, even though nothing about them matched whether race, gender, status, or cultivation realm, Shurho wanted to be with Seo Ran. Because of this, he cannot simply stand by and watch Seo Ran in such pain. Even amidst the torturous torment of tainted soul filling the heavens, Shurho looks into Seo Ran's eyes and shouts, "Seo Ran." Seo Hweol turns around with a meaningful smile. Seo Ran stares at Shurho with blank eyes. "Don't forget me." Seo Ran's pupils widen. The despair clouding his eyes seems to retreat slightly. Then, Seo Hweol's pupils split vertically. Buke. That is the end. Shurho's life ends just like that. Seo Ran stares ahead with vacant eyes. Shurho's soul is being torn apart. Shurho's spirit body. Its neck is severed. The arms, legs, and tail of the spirit body are all torn apart, and Shurho's shattered spirit scatters deep into the darkness of tainted soul filling the heavens. Shurho is dead. It is over. At the most critical moment, Seo Hweol killed Shurho, who had intended to act as Seo Ran's greatest support, all while wearing a gentle smile. "I've won." Seo Ran. Disappear. Keek. Seo Ran's spirit body lowers its head blankly. The plate holding his body begins to gradually descend. After witnessing Seo Hweol's memories, Seo Ran was thrown into despair, struck by the overwhelming truth of his own essence. Then in that moment, he saw his cherished beloved ripped apart and killed as he was cheering for him. It's an irreparable wound. As the scale gradually tilts downward, the light protecting Seo Ran is devoured by the darkness. And then, just as Seo Ran's spirit body is about to completely fall and dissolve into the darkness, thunk, the scale stops. Seo Hweol looks down with a puzzled expression. Seo Ran, with nails torn out and bleeding, scratches desperately at the bottom of the scale as he looks up at Seo Hweol. Though his face is clearly filled with despair and defeat, a single glimmer of determination rests in his expression. Seo Hweol. Yes, for now, I have lost. Even as he speaks, his body continues to dissolve into the darkness. But for some reason, Seo Hweol feels that the light in Seo Ran's eyes hasn't entirely disappeared. But, just because I'm in despair, it doesn't mean that my connections, or the fact that I was loved, will vanish. Never. Kick, kick. The scale holding Seo Ran begins to tilt. Seo Ran's spirit body gradually starts to slide deeper into the abyss. I was loved. By my mother. By Elder John Hyang. By Senior Eunhyun. By my master. By everyone. Even if I die. Seo Ran slides faster and faster off the scale. The truth that I was loved, that alone, will never disappear. And finally, Seo Ran's body falls from the scale. Seo Ran falls deep into the darkness. So, my heart too. Seo Ran begins to dissolve. The thick darkness consumes him. But for some reason, Seo Hweol cannot take his eyes off him. The light radiating from Seo Ran's eyes seems to hold him in place. Will never disappear. With those final words, Seo Ran vanishes. Zing. Simultaneously, the judgment of the owner of names, determining the true and false among the two personalities residing in one body, descends. Ding. In this world, the name, Seo Ran, is stripped away by the owner of names. Now, Seo Hweol can no longer recall the name of he had fought against just moments ago. At the same time, the name of is erased from the memory of the majority of mortal beings in this world. It is as though it has been excised from history, and so is defeated. All that remains is Seo Hweol. Yet Seo Hweol feels that the desperate voice left behind at the end reverberates within his chest for some inexplicable reason. Why is it? Seo Hweol senses that, someday, that voice will greatly alter his fate. It shouldn't matter. Seo Hweol decides to forget the name and final moments of the defeated, because he still has the goal he swore to achieve from the moment he first opened his eyes in this world. At last, Seo Hweol reclaims his main body, which had been stolen by. He has recovered the emotion he had hidden away for thousands of years. In the deepest depths of tainted soul filling the heavens, where the traces of the owner of names have vanished, leaving only Seo Hweol. In that place, Seo Hweol clutches his chest and trembles from the overwhelming wave created as the emotions of his childhood, reclaimed after thousands of years, merges with the memories stored in the deepest depths. Hateful. After a brief moment spent suppressing his emotions, Seo Hweol finally opens his eyes to reality. Snap. It happens in an instant. When Seo Ran opens his eyes and snaps his fingers, Han1 and Yunwei, along with Oh Hi Seo, are suddenly transferred outside my colorless sword enclosure. I look at the person standing before me. The person's gaze has completely changed. It is neither Seo Ran, nor Xiao Hweol's. It is not the pair of empty eyes, nor is it the gaze filled with hopeful purity. The eyes are murky. It appears unfocused, and, at the same time, it surpasses the simple malice that I felt from Xiao Hweol. I sense overwhelming pain and hatred emanating from them. I realize what has happened. What has become of Xiao Hweol? At the name I utter, Xiao Hweol appears to flinch slightly. However, he smiles faintly and responds. What do you mean, Taoist Xiao? From the beginning, I have always been one. Is that so? With a sorrowful gaze, I reach out my hand. Regardless of what has happened, following his wishes, I will avenge Xiao Ran. This vengeance is not only his. This is also for Su In, Hong Yun, the vengeance of the two children. Quajik. I crush and kill Xiao Hweol standing before me. But his soul slips away. It likely escaped through the deepest depths of tainted soul, filling the heavens to a distant place. With a cold gaze, I reach out my hand. I won't let you escape. Kugugugugu. Hweol sheds tears as she watches countless stars pass by around her. After thousands of years, finally, she has been freed from within Xiao Eunhyun's stomach. Xiao Hweol. I'm finally out. I'm finally free. But the expression on Xiao Hweol's face, as he leaps across vast distances with her, is not particularly bright. Glancing briefly at Han Won and Yunwei in his hands, Xiao Hweol turns to look behind him. Kugugugugu. From far behind, Xiao Eunhyun's hand is chasing them. Still chasing? Strange. How is he able to track me? There must be something. Frowning, Xiao Hweol leaps across countless stars, carrying Xiao, Han Won, and Yunwei. It's strange. Through tainted soul filling the heavens, he has erased all traces of himself within cedarwood painting. He even succeeded in removing Xiao Eunhyun's subheart sword from within his body. Having reclaimed his main body and regained his eyes, it wasn't an impossible feat. And yet, Xiao Eunhyun is pursuing him across thousands of light years. How? Just how is he managing to track me? As he ponders, Xiao Hweol suddenly notices something. It is a trace within his tainted soul filling the heavens. It is not some mark left behind by Xiao Eunhyun. Rather, it is more like a trace that something left from inside, tainted soul filling the heavens to the outside. This trace, could it be? As Xiao Hweol identifies the source of the trace, for the first time since awakening in this world, his face twists into an evil spirit. You did this. You sent it over. How dare you? How dare you? No matter what, you are me. How could you hand over my oath to another? Xiao Hweol roars with genuine fury into the vast cosmic space. The one whose name he can no longer remember. During their battle, they had sent Xiao Hweol's memories to outside tainted soul filling the heavens. To Xiao Eunhyun. Now, Xiao Eunhyun is using the memories passed on by to track Xiao Hweol. Xiao Hweol screams in genuine rage at. As long as Xiao Eunhyun possesses the memories passed to him by, Xiao Hweol cannot escape Xiao Eunhyun's pursuit. Because Xiao Hweol's memories and oath are the very essence of his being. I hold the memory of Xiao Hweol that Xiao Ran passed on to me. Clutching the information body that contains that memory, I relentlessly pursue Xiao Hweol and Xiao with an arrogant expression. The object in my hand resonates endlessly with Xiao Hweol, as if it's his very essence. Yes, this feels like the connection between the blood of the sea dragon race and summoning wind, true blood transformation. It is as though their mere existence connects them to one another. Xiao Ran. I will never forget you. As I use the memory of Xiao Hweol, obtained thanks to Xiao Ran, a sacrifice with no damage or resistance, I continue my pursuit of them. Xiao Hweol's past unfolds vividly, piece by piece before my eyes. Chapter 525, Xiao Hweol's Memories, 2. Chapter 525, Xiao Hweol's Memories, 2. The first memory of the existence called Xiao Hweol was their mother and father enveloped in a pure white light. The two smiled brightly at them, who was then just a baby. In their childhood, they grew up receiving abundant love from their parents. Memories of childhood are generally blurry. Xiao Hweol's memories are also hazy. However, one thing is certain. Xiao Hweol, while they may not have always been loved, was undoubtedly happy, and that continued even after their personality fully developed and learned that their name is Xiao Hweol. Xiao Hweol was a happy person. Though their life was a bit shabby, they could read some words as the child of a family that ran a bookstore and was considered one of the brightest among the village children. Xiao Hweol mastered all written characters and basic learning materials by the age of 5. However, despite possessing such genius, Xiao Hweol's parents neither urged nor pressured them. They simply loved them as they were, and whenever they excelled at something beyond others, their parents simply praised them, saying they did well. Xiao Hweol's mind became sharper by the day. Simply observing something was enough for them to grasp its principles, and through that, they understood the world. Hweol, while observing lightning strike the ground, attempted to guide it with a kite and even created a lightning rod. They also invented a water wheel, which their village lacked, and crafted saddles and stirrups. The children, young adults of the village, Hweol's friends, all of them liked Hweol. Everyone said the same thing, that Hweol would surely grow up to be a great figure. However, Hweol still did not have a clear goal. It might be more accurate to say that because they possessed the ability to do anything, they didn't know what to pursue. Martial arts? Scholarship? Cooking? Farming? Inventing? Hunting? Whatever it was, Hweol would perfect it and even identify ways to improve and refine them further. This was Hweol's talent. So what exactly was such a Hweol supposed to do? Hweol did not know. Thus, they began to observe the people around him. As Hweol's friends grew older, they got married. Hweol also asked their parents. They asked if they, too, needed to marry a man or a woman. Their parents replied, "Everything under heaven and earth follows the principle, league, of Taiji, pairing as it should." Hweol decided to follow their words. However, Hweol couldn't decide whether they should marry a man or a woman. While contemplating, they reasoned that if they married a woman and became a husband, they could travel the outside world, observe more, and better comprehend the principles of the world. Thus, Hweol became a man. He became a man, chose a girl who liked him, held a wedding, and became someone's husband. After marrying the girl, Hweol gradually matured, taking charge of all the village affairs and broadening his horizons. At times, he went on journeys. At times, he visited the capital to learn more about the world. And at other times, he joined wars, galloping to the ends of the earth beside a conquering king. In this way, Hweol aged. He traveled the entire world and grasped the principles behind countless events that occurred within it. With his old, near-death body, he eventually returned to his home village and peacefully closed his eyes amidst the blessings of his home village's people. He lived one life, full of happiness and satisfaction, and departed as such. Hweol. He lived to the age of 90. Hweol opened their eyes again. It felt as though they had woken up from a long dream. Hweol realized that something was strange. A powerful sense of déjà vu washed over them. At the same time, they saw the faces of their parents within the radiant light. However, Hweol found it strange. These parents were not Hweol's parents. Their parents found it strange that Hweol was not crying and smacked their bottom. A baby girl not crying, but only rolling her eyes? How ominous. Hweol pretended to cry for the time being to grasp the situation. And then they understood what was happening. Hweol had reincarnated. But it was a bit peculiar. For one, the beings who were now their parents were clearly people Hweol had seen in their previous life. That's right. Hweol was born to their former life's father-in-law and mother-in-law. As Hweol grew older, they gradually came to confirm their existence. Hweol had reincarnated into the body of their own wife, returning to the childhood of her past. It was such a bizarre event that Hweol was always lost in thought, trying to explore its principles. And watching such a Hweol, their new parents, their in-laws from the previous life, despised them, saying, "A girl who doesn't speak and whose thoughts are impossible to know is utterly ominous." Then, Hweol discovered something strange. The parents, who had been their parents in their first life, did not exist. Following this, the Hweol of the previous life also naturally ceased to exist. As a result, even though Hweol had been reincarnated into their wife's body, they were able to retain the name Hweol. They, or rather, she, continued to ponder. Why had such a thing occurred? However, Hweol's parents came to view her as increasingly ominous, and as soon as Hweol grew mature enough, they sold her to a beggar on the street. Hweol became the beggar's wife, lying beneath him, observing and analyzing new experiences she hadn't gained in her previous life. But for some reason, Hweol could not have children. In fact, it was the same in her previous life. Hweol had lived an entire lifetime without having children, and this life was no different. The beggar, angry at Hweol for her inability to have children, beat her savagely and roughly violated her body. And one day, Hweol was eventually beaten to death by the beggar. She died at the age of 18. Hweol opened their eyes again. Once again, parents were looking down at them from within the radiant light. Hweol understood what had happened. They had reincarnated again, and this time, to an earlier point in time. Hweol figured out who they had reincarnated as this time. One of their friends from their first life. This time, he was a boy again. Reincarnated as a boy, he observed his surroundings, and he began to feel an inexplicable sense of déjà vu. It was such a strange déjà vu that Hweol instinctively understood. This strange déjà vu was the very cause of his repeated reincarnations. Thus, he grew up under new parents. As Hweol grew under his new parents, he realized two things. First, these new parents didn't like Hweol either. Like the previous life, his new parents disliked how Hweol constantly brooded over something. Seeing him observe the world and explore its principles, they accused him of simply playing around and frequently scolded and beat him. Second, the Hweol and his parents from the first life and the Hweol of the second life had all disappeared. The Hweol from the previous life. In other words, the Hweol who had reincarnated into the body of his wife in the first life had disappeared in this life. Word was that his previous parents, his in-laws from the life before that, ended up in such a way that the father-in-law became an eunuch and could no longer consummate their marriage. The very casuality, Yingguo, that would have led to the birth of Hweol's wife in the first life had been erased. Hweol did everything he could from his current position to figure out what was going on. First, he utilized the knowledge from his previous life to restore his family's fortunes. Then, using his family's power, he gathered shamans, sorcerers, monks, and Taoists from all over the country to investigate whether such a phenomenon had happened before. Hweol absorbed their knowledge, learning everything he could, and read every piece of literature dealing with strange events, Jishu, supernatural forces, Galilanshan, and ancient myths from all corners of the world. However, he could not find a single clue. Nevertheless, Hweol did not give up and scoured the world for all kinds of information on sorcery, spells, ghosts, and heavenly deities. And Hweol failed to realize that his parents and siblings feared him. No, he knew. But even if he knew, he never thought that parents could harm their own child. Because in the common sense Hweol knew, parents might beat, scold, or berate their children, but they were still parents. Even if they could sell their daughters to beggars, they were still parents. For that reason, while collecting information on all kinds of ghosts and supernatural powers, Hweol naively trusted them. No matter what, he never thought his family would harm him. Hweol, trusting the parents who feared him and living comfortably in their house even after reaching adulthood, was strangled to death in the middle of the night by his parents and siblings. Hweol opened their eyes again. Amidst the pure white light, they saw new parents. Hweol felt a strong sense of déjà vu. They recalled how their parents and siblings from the previous life had strangled them in their sleep and decided to reassess the situation. However, realizing that they had been directly killed by their own parents brought forth an indescribable flood of tears, leaving them unable to think clearly. The fourth life of Hweol was once again as a girl. She was one of the girls who had followed the Hweol of the first life, admiring him. The parents of this life, seeing Hweol barely speak, refused to eat, and often sobbing quietly, believed she was possessed by a ghost. Thus, when Hweol turned 5, they sold her to a pavilion in the city. Hweol, sold to the pavilion, did menial work and eventually grew into a courtesan. Utilizing her unique analytical skills and ability to grow, she quickly rose to become the top courtesan in the brothel. None could match her in poetry, calligraphy, music, and dance. She learned much at the pavilion. The art of captivating people, the techniques to seize their hearts, the ways to keep them clinging, and more. However, because she never thought favorably of the pavilion itself, she persuaded those who clung to her to walk the proper path, arranging good marriages for them so they would never return to the pavilion. While Hweol's reputation grew, the pavilion faced declining patronage, gradually falling into poverty. Regardless, Hweol used her status and position to continue investigating this phenomenon. As she was bound by her status as a courtesan, she could not leave the pavilion and had to rely on others to continue her investigation. She realized it was the same in this life as well. The Hweol of the first life and the causality that brought him into being. The Hweol of the second life and the causality that brought her into being. And the previous life, the Hweol of the third life and the causality that brought him into being. All of it had disappeared. The parents who had killed the Hweol of the previous life had become infertile and could no longer have children, preventing the birth of the existence that was Hweol's former friend and Hweol himself. The same was true this time as well. Every time Hweol was reborn, the connections from the previous life were being erased one by one. At this rate, all the connections that the Hweol of the first life had known would eventually vanish. Before it came to that, Hweol resolved to solve this situation and once again retraced the events of her past life. As a courtesan, she gained access to forbidden books and texts she had never seen before in her previous life. Hweol summoned countless shamans, Taoists, monks, and priests, accumulating their knowledge. And finally, she realized something. Monks, Taoists, and shamans could not provide the answer to this situation. Although she had read all the scriptures and legends they provided, none of them explained the phenomenon she was experiencing. Thus, She continued to ponder what method itself could explain this phenomenon. But one day, the pavilion owner attacked Hweol. Knowing the lust the pavilion owner harbored for her, Hweol pretended to give in. However, after violating Hweol, the pavilion owner cut off her tongue. Then, after severing the tendons in one of her legs, he sold her to a red pavilion specializing in prostitutes. The reason was absurd. The owner claimed that because of Hweol's whispers, too many patrons had stopped coming to the pavilion, worsening its finances. And so, Hweol was sold to a pleasure pavilion. Having experienced being pushed beneath a man in her past life, she did not fear receiving many men. She engaged with men, and at times women, gradually understanding humanity. Although her tongue had been cut out, such a thing was not particularly necessary for her learning. She was able to learn much in the Red Pavilion. She went beyond merely captivating or binding people to her. She learned how to make them devote everything to her. The art of completely seizing control over people and manipulating them. She learned how to exploit human desires. Amidst a world overflowing with countless desires and lust, Hweol came to understand humanity. And, eventually, while manipulating and captivating people, she became entangled in a love-driven conflict and had her neck cut by a man who claimed to love her. Hweol died at the age of 36. Hweol opened their eyes. Amid the radiance, new parents appeared before them again. Once more, they felt a strong sense of déjà vu. They recognized who they were in this life. Hweol was born as the beggar. He was the beggar who had been the husband of the Hweol of the second life. Once again, Hweol's parents in this life were not good people. Hweol remembered how, on his first birthday, one of his parents, drunk on alcohol, had tried to strangle him to death but fell asleep in the process. As the days went by, Hweol was beaten more and more. His father and mother were both the same. They were always eager to kill Hweol. And Hweol once again felt that the physical bodies of his previous lives had completely disappeared along with the casualty. However, at this point, Hweol no longer knew what else to do. He had investigated every myth and legend. Moreover, he had read through countless texts and scriptures from the shaman family, Hweol, immortal family, Shanjia, and the Buddhist family, Phojab, on supernatural powers. He learned about Buddhist family entities, such as the Seven Brilliances, Hweol, twin venerables, Songzun, and one king, Yiwang. He also came to know of the 11 governings, Feng, of the immortal family. He even heard countless stories about minor gods and ancient deities, Gusen, from the shaman family. All of them were bizarre and astonishing, but that was all. None of it provided a solution to Hweol's situation. Moreover, the situation only continued to worsen. For some reason, the parents of his fifth life gradually came to hate him more and more and eventually sold Hweol to a labor camp. Hweol became a mining slave, working in a mercury mine. While extracting mercury, Hweol was gradually exposed to heavy metal poisoning, his body growing weaker. Realizing that this could not go on, Hweol used all of his abilities. Using his skills, he captivated the mine overseers and managers, subtly manipulating their psychology until, at the perfect moment, he seized an opportunity and escaped the mine. However, after escaping the mine, he was overwhelmed with despair. What on earth was he supposed to do? What more could he possibly do? Hweol was in so much anguish that he no longer wanted to do anything at all. He drank the mercury elixir that the mine owner occasionally consumed. It wasn't just the mercury elixir. He gathered hallucinogenic plants and made drugs that pavilion customers used to smoke, and consumed them himself. Everything seemed about to end. But, at that moment, while high on drugs and his body soiling itself in the drug's intoxication, Hweol felt something through the drug-induced hallucinations. It was déjà vu. Hweol felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu and instantly sobered up from the drugs. That was it. The strong sense of déjà vu Hweol felt each time he started a new life. Finally, in the depths of his wretched existence, and under the influence of drugs, Hweol had managed to uncover a clue about his life. From that day forward, Hweol sought out and inhaled all kinds of drugs. The initial sense of déjà vu became harder to feel the more drugs he consumed. Hweol felt it was because he was getting accustomed to the drugs. Thus, he began seeking even stronger drugs. Addicted to drugs every day, he begged and labored to obtain them, hoping to feel that powerful sense of déjà vu once again. Though his intellect and skills could have allowed him to earn money quickly, his drug intoxication made even that difficult. His thoughts became limited to only base and degrading ideas. Simple labor or begging were the only ways he could obtain drugs. However, he needed increasingly stronger drugs to feel the déjà vu, and the stronger the drug, the more expensive it was. As a result, at some point, Hweol began stealing. Hweol displayed talent even for theft. Each day, he broke into the apothecary's storeroom, producing drugs even while intoxicated by them. He had expertise even in making drugs. As he manufactured drugs daily, he could create countless varieties of drugs through his own unique formulas, and lived every day drenched in those countless drugs. But then, on one such day, Hweol, in a state of weakened reason due to drug intoxication, created the ultimate drug. Upon consuming the ultimate drug, he finally succeeded in partially uncovering the nature of the déjà vu. Hweol felt the boundary between this world and the illusory world created by the drug growing faint in the midst of the déjà vu. He didn't know exactly what that meant. But one thing was certain, hope had emerged. However, while intoxicated by the ultimate drug, Hweol was caught stealing from the apothecary that day. Flayed alive, he was turned into human Hweol. He died at the age of 45. Hweol opened their eyes once again. In this life, she was reborn as a girl. Ignoring the parents gazing down at her in the radiance, Hweol quickly analyzed the situation. It was still one of the women who had followed Hweol around in the first life. Hweol began living her life in the body of the woman. However, this family was even more of a dead end than the previous one. Hweol's parents were quickly taken by the plague, leaving her to be raised by one of her relatives. Under her relative's care, Hweol endured all manner of humiliation and abuse from a young age. But none of that mattered. At some point, Hweol stopped caring about concepts like ethics. She simply used her abilities to take control of her relative's household and bend it to her will. Then, to ensure they could not fear her or even have the thought of fearing her, she directed their attention elsewhere. She created a target for their hatred. By subtly whispering that the elderly scholar from the neighboring house was stealing the harvest from their fields, she provoked them into conflict. With a target for their hatred, the household lost their minds and stopped paying any attention to her. She used her appearance and body as tools to bring the entire village into her grasp. First, the village. Then, the town. After that, the city. After bringing the leaders of countless factions under her thumb, she eventually managed to place even the emperor of the nation beneath her. She became the empress. As the empress, she began purchasing medicinal ingredients from across the nation to recreate the ultimate drug. However, even the ultimate drug could no longer evoke that same sense of déjà vu. She became accustomed to that too. Hweol pondered. How could she plunge her mind even more rapidly into the abyss than with the ultimate drug? She summoned all the experts across the nation to solve this question. Doctors and female physicians gathered. At the same time, shamans and sorcerers assembled. Finally, after extensive discussions with countless experts, Hweol came to an understanding. The most powerful drug of all was ultimately the human brain, RTOC. A person's brain, as the manufacturing center for all kinds of hallucinogenic substances, could exhibit a potency far stronger than any drug if its potential were unlocked. Hearing this, Hweol set out to discover a way to manipulate her own brain. At first, she used medicine, but eventually, she turned to the sorcerer's spells to plunge her mind into hallucinations. Amidst the déjà vu that surrounded her, she realized a few truths. While she might have been happy at first, as the days passed, she would inevitably become unhappy. She didn't know why. That fact was determined. How could she escape this cycle of misery? How could she escape this cycle of suffering? Hweol pondered these questions. However, no solution presented itself. She merely continued refining her techniques for manipulating the brain. One day, she finally uncovered the principle behind the sorcerer's spells. It was a form of hypnosis. Disguised as a ritual and incantations, it was a technique for manipulating the mind. Hweol established a field of study called hypnotism and began to delve further into its study. But, after spending over a decade immersed solely in hypnotism, the crown prince born of another consort ascended to the throne. By the will of the new emperor's mother, Hweol was subjected to the punishment of becoming a human pig. Her limbs were severed, and she was thrown into a pigsty. Hweol died in the pigsty. She died at the age of 54. However, within her painful life, Hweol smiled as she died for the first time. It was because she had deceived her brain through hypnosis, convincing it that the situation was joyful. Ho 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 ho. As she was torn apart by pigs, she laughed and laughed. The seventh life. The moment Hweol was born, they looked up at the parents smiling at them beneath the light and smiled faintly back at them. By now, they had come to understand a few of the laws of her life. First, the self from the previous life is entirely erased along with the cause and effect. Second, through the use of drugs or hypnotism, they could deceive the brain and experience a strong sense of déjà vu. Third, the longer their life goes on, the more miserable they would become. That was it. And just as expected, as soon as Hweol was born, the parents of this life sold Hweol to bandits and told them to make Hweol into baby Hweol. Hweol's fate was definitely to die as a baby jackal. However, using the hypnosis they had mastered in their previous life, Hweol controlled the bandits. And, having grown up in the bandits' mountain hideout, they once again came to realize who they were. He was, shockingly, the father-in-law of Hweol from the first life. He was also the father of Hweol from his second life. He had discovered another law of life. Regardless of time or space, he would continue to reincarnate, replacing someone who originally existed. Upon discovering this truth, Hweol dedicated his life to uncovering the knotter of the déjà vu. He hypnotized and brainwashed countless commoners, manipulating the minds of many. At the same time, Hweol continuously refined his own mind through hypnotism, pushing himself deeper and deeper into the depths of hallucination. The deeper he went, the stronger the déjà vu became, until at some point, Hweol discovered something else within the déjà vu. It was loathing, hatred. A powerful hatred, surrounded Hweol's entire life. And Hweol realized what it was. The Hweols of the previous lives. In other words, it was the hatred of those who had been replaced by Hweol. The hatred of those who had been replaced by Hweol and erased from the world blanketed the entirety of Hweol's life. Because of their hatred, Hweol could only become increasingly miserable and suffer more and more as time went on. Within his agony, Hweol shed tears of blood. This could not go on. If things continued this way, all the people Hweol cherished would gradually be replaced by Hweol himself. He quickly had to find a way to end this way of life. Thus, Hweol continued searching relentlessly for a solution. It was on one such day, Hweol reached the pinnacle of hypnosis, achieving a state where he could instantly fall into hypnosis and traverse hallucinations. His control over his brain had developed to the point where he could instantly manipulate it to release hallucinogenic substances in abundance. And within the hallucination, Hweol felt the strongest sense of déjà vu he had ever experienced. It was the sense of déjà vu where the boundary between reality and illusion blurred. Within that sense of déjà vu, Hweol glimpsed a terrifying possibility. In an effort to deny this possibility, Hweol mobilized every bit of knowledge and logic he possessed to push it away. However, Hweol's level of hypnosis had become far too advanced. Where once he had relied on drugs to feel déjà vu, he had reached the point where, with just a minor adjustment of his brain, he could feel it at will within his hallucinations, and even peer beyond it. As Hweol observed this déjà vu, he came face to face with a truth he could not refute with any logic. That truth was, this world was a dream. Chapter 526, Hweol's Memories, 3. That's how it was. Rewinding time, reincarnating with memories intact, and life growing increasingly unfortunate as it went on. Those were all things possible only in a dream. However, Hweol wanted to deny that possibility. That all his stories, all his pain, all his life amounted to nothing more than a dream. That was absolutely unforgivable. But Hweol soon found himself desperately wanting to escape this dream. The reason was very simple. For that simple reason, Hweol decided to research a way to leave this world. He even used his own death as a tool to study this world within a dream and took his own life. He died at the age of 63. The eighth life. Hweol refined hypnosis to its utmost limit. Through hypnosis, they sought to awaken their brain and realize their true essence. This was also a struggle to wake up from the dream. Under the light, Hweol brainwashed their parents who looked down at them, turning them into Hweol's puppets and erasing their personalities. After all, they were merely characters in the dream. They weren't Hweol's real parents. Thus, they controlled their parents like puppets without hesitation. They then hypnotized everyone in the village whom they had once considered friends, brainwashing them into Hweol's puppets. Every connection could be used and discarded like a worn-out shoe. After all, it was all fake. These replaced existences would, sooner or later, pile up layers of hatred, gradually pushing Hweol's life into a pit of misfortune. Hweol toyed with the minds of thousands and brainwashed countless people, turning the entire world into their puppets. However, even after brainwashing the entire world, Hweol realized that they could not wake up from the dream. Hweol couldn't figure out what was wrong. To find the problem, they pushed themselves even further, delving deeper into the abyss of their mind through hypnosis. And finally, Hweol understood. The reason they couldn't escape this world was because they didn't understand their own essence. They had to remember who they were before they began dreaming. Why were they the only ones special enough to repeatedly reincarnate within this dream world? Perhaps it was because the entity known as Hweol was the owner of the dream. If so, then what kind of being was Hweol before they started dreaming? If they could find the answer, they might discover a way to wake up from the dream. They had to find out who the real Hweol was. In short, they had to understand their essence even more deeply. That was the only way to escape this world. From that day on, Hweol repeatedly hypnotized themselves to look back into their own past and learn about themselves. Hweol fell deeper and deeper into the dream. It took decades. Even after having the world in their grasp, Hweol spent decades and finally connected with their essence before the dream. Hweol's essence was dry and mechanical. They didn't know exactly what it was, but Hweol was merely a terminal sent somewhere by someone to search for something incredibly precious that had been lost. A purposeless existence, mechanical, only following orders and performing actions as commanded. Secret art, purple soul filling the heavens. That thing, having fallen somewhere, mixed with the fragments, present there, and became something new. That was Hweol. And then, so that's how it is. Upon realizing this truth, Hweol said, "Was I nothing more than someone's technique?" Hweol committed suicide. They died at the age of 72. Even suicide was useless. Hweol still had to wake up under the new parents, who smiled down at them beneath the light. And, through Hweol's recent suicide, they understood. A living being, at the moment of death, reaches the extreme limits of emotion and mind. Hweol, who could reach the deepest depths of their mind through hypnosis, realized that the moment of death was the very instant one could reach the peak of the mind. They didn't know why this was so, but it was something they had discovered after experiencing death several times. At any rate, Hweol succeeded in reaching the extreme of the mind, and there, they faced the source of the déjà vu. They completely understood the structure of the world. The reason they could not leave this world. It was because Hweol was never the protagonist of the dream to begin with. They weren't even the central pillar of purple soul filling the heavens. To be precise, the technique, purple soul filling the heavens, had mixed with this world and scattered across its many corners. And Hweol was merely one of those countless scattered fragments. Not purple soul filling the heavens, not anything else. They were merely one of the characters of the dream, and thus, Hweol was fated to suffer eternal torment within this dream world. Indeed, a supporting character of a dream. That was Hweol. As a being within the dream, Hweol realized the meaning of their existence. They existed to replace the characters in the dream in case there were too many of them, reducing their numbers and alleviating the fatigue of the owner of the dream. And finally, they realized a way to escape this world, a way to wake from the dream. It was through the power granted to them by their role. Replacement. They had to replace the entire world with Hweol. In the end, if they replaced everything in this world, nullified every connection they had, and left only themselves and the owner of the dream. In this world, Hweol would naturally be absorbed by the owner of the dream. With nothing left to do in the empty dream, the owner would inevitably wake up from the dream. In short, they had to reincarnate endlessly until every existence in this world was replaced by Hweol. If they could endure until then without their personality collapsing, Hweol would finally be free. And, upon realizing this truth, Hweol finally wept bitterly. Just why? Why must I endure such suffering? Are you telling me everything I've built up was meaningless? Hweol lived in suffering. Even though they knew that everything in the world was a dream, they lived in suffering. To suffer is, ultimately, to accept. Those who refuse to accept something do not suffer. Only those who accept something suffer. Hweol, despite knowing the world was a dream and that nothing held meaning, had still accepted the beings of the world in some corner of their heart. Even as their sense of ethics wore down, even as they viewed the world as half-fake and treated its inhabitants as disposable tools. Half of Hweol was still accepting this world. But Hweol finally realized that they could no longer endure the pain. They could not endure that endless time. Nor could they ever accept such an ending, where every connection from their first life, their only happy life, was completely replaced by Hweol's own wretched self. Hweol collapsed on the spot. Who were they? What was this world? Who in the world could have created such a vicious and agonizing dream system? Hweol sat there, weeping bitterly and agonizing over these questions. Hweol could have shattered their own personality and erased their memories. But Hweol couldn't do that, because they had a goal to wake from the dream. If they were to forget even that, Hweol would be finished. Thus, they did not erase their personality. Instead, they pondered and pondered again about how they could escape this world. 81 years passed that way. For 81 years, Hweol pondered until their body reached the end of its lifespan. And Hweol finally made a decision. I will not spend thousands, hundreds of millions of years replacing the entirety of this world and waking from the dream. He could not endure that long passage of time. Moreover, they couldn't be sure that the one who would wake from the dream would even be Hweol himself. That was the worst possible ending. In that case, they had to choose the lesser evil. In this life, I will end everything. Hweol shed tears of blood. They, too, had a heart. He had emotions. Though they might only be a supporting character in a dream, a mere tool for the owner of the dream, they still thought of themselves as a living person. From their second life onward, the emotions weren't particularly strong. However, the connections from their first life, the only time they had been truly happy, were still precious to them. At some point, they began to see themselves as nothing more than a puppet. But even puppets can have attachment. Even if Hweol thought of them as characters in a dream, Hweol held a strange attachment to them, especially after realizing that they themselves were nothing more than a supporting character in this dream. However, Hweol decided to abandon that attachment. They decided to abandon those connections. To endure pain is to accept. But Hweol could no longer accept the connections within the dream. With that resolve, Hweol began to fragment themselves. Though Hweol had often manipulated the minds of others through hypnosis and brainwashing, Hweol had rarely interfered deeply with their own mind beyond pushing it deeper into hallucinations. Hweol finally began to manipulate and fragment their own mind. They did not go mad. The process of fragmenting their personality was painful, but they knew that if they abandoned themselves, there would be no more pain. Hweol began transforming themselves into a configuration. And, as Hweol transformed themselves into a configuration, they finally crossed a line that had remained in a corner of their heart. Even when Hweol had brainwashed the people of this world, Hweol had never violated their essence. But after crossing that line, Hweol began to invade their very essence. Beyond simply brainwashing and turning them into puppets, Hweol repeated the brainwashing process until they turned into configurations, transforming them into perfect replicas of Hweol themselves. Each time they brainwashed one of their friends, Hweol cried out in agony, tears streaming down their face. All of them. They were Hweol's friends. They might be nothing more than puppets to Hweol now, but they were the ones who had been Hweol's friends in the first life. They might have held no practical meaning, yet they were meaningful to Hweol. They were Hweol's heart. In this way, Hweol began replacing every character in this dream world with a Hweol, filled with hatred and pain. They turned the entire world into Hweol. After surpassing a certain threshold, Hweol felt the very essence of the dream begin to distort. The boundaries of the world blurred, and everything began to dissolve into an illusion. And finally, when everyone had been replaced with Hweol, Hweol was able to behold the owner of the dream. So you were there. Hweol looked at the ray of light. With the entire world replaced by Hweol, only they and the ray of light in the sky remained in this dream. No, to be precise, it was the being sealed within the ray of light. Hweol entered the ray of light. They felt the sensation of a seal, but it was incredibly faint. Rather than a seal, it felt more like wrapping. Within the ray of light was a dark red glow. Hweol asked the dark red light, "I ask you, what is the purpose of my existence?" Hweol voiced their goal to wake from the dream. My parents. You, my origin. What kind of being are you? Who is the owner of the dream? What kind of being are they? And what were they thinking when they created this world? Hweol merely wanted to know that. After being born into this world, just knowing that single truth was the purpose and reason Hweol had struggled to wake from the dream. And then, the being Hweol believed to be the owner of the dream, spoke. Incredible. For a mere supporting character in a dream born from the primordial chaos of ancient force to pass the trials meant for the successor at Hebefenho, and reach before me. Editor, Dongmingja equals Ender. The at your Bafenho, the being spoke of was beyond Hweol's comprehension. But Hweol could roughly grasp the meaning of what the being was saying. This world was merely a testing ground for someone else. That's right, a trial world meant to pass on the miracle of the predecessor to the successor. You were nothing more than a supporting character within the dream born from ancient force, designed to secure the computational space of the world and maintain the virtual reality until the successor at your Bafenhao, arrived. And yet, how did such a miracle occur? Interesting. At your Bafenhao, Zhongmingja, indeed. With a gloomy expression, Hweol asked the being, "Who are you?" Only now could Hweol understand. The being before Hweol was not their origin. It was merely the administrator. It was not the being who held the answers Hweol sought. And the administrator, before Hweol answered their question, "I am yes. Agate, Monak. Call me." Agate for now. The moment Hweol heard its title, they understood Agate's essence. Its essence was singular. Hatred. Yes, Hweol finally understood why. Despite being meaningless characters within a dream, the concept of hatred had accumulated layer by layer throughout their life. Hweol understood why their life had been filled only with pain, hatred, and loathing, and why their life had been set to flow in that direction. Because the administrator of this world, because the very fabric of this dream was built upon the concept of hatred, Nung. Chapter 527, Filling the Heavens, Mongtan. 1. This world, what exactly is it? Hweol asked with a serious expression. Agate laughed at the question. Do you want to know? A laugh that somehow felt mocking. It was as if Agate knew exactly why Hweol was asking such a question. Kaiduk, 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 kaiduk. It was an unpleasant laugh that made the listener uncomfortable. An ordinary person might have flown into a rage just from hearing that laughter. But Hweol remained expressionless, his hollow eyes staring into the crimson light. Answer me. I know what kind of answer you're hoping for. You have expectations. You're hoping this world is something special. And through the meaning bestowed upon this world, you seek to find meaning for yourself as well. Isn't that so? Answer me. My answer is, no, it is not. If it is a place of trials for someone, doesn't that make it special? What's special is the result of the trial, not the world of the trial. Kaiduk, 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 kaiduk. The world of trials serves only to provide a training ground for the successor to wield their fate, and, at the end of their training, to grant them the ultimate authority they can wield through their fate. That is all. This world itself was created through a dream that anyone living in the head realm could have. Do you seek the specialness of this world? This world is not special. If you are not a successor, it is nothing but a meaningless virtual space. Do you understand? For a moment, Hweol remained expressionless and silent. Then, he opened his mouth. You're trying to shake me and devour me. And then, purple vapor began to boil around him. Agate closed its mouth. You've noticed. Begone, error. At those words, dark red light engulfed Hweol. Hweol closed their eyes and opened them again. With the beams of light came a familiar scene. New parents. At the same time, their memories began to fade. Everything that had happened before felt like a dream. They became a baby who could do nothing but eat, excrete, and cry. They had reincarnated once again. And this time, they had lost all their memories. That's how it was supposed to be. Hweol spoke with a solemn face. Life is a series of suffering. That's why living beings have so much they wish to forget. But I do not forget. I do not suffer. Because I have already become suffering itself. It distorted. It split. It divided. And then, it configured itself. Just like that. Configuration spread out from Hweol once more. The entire world was filled with configurations, and once again, the dream distorted, returning the situation to just moments before. It was the same moment when Hweol and Agate faced each other. Hweol looked at Agate. Agate looked at Hweol. I will not listen to your explanations. I have no interest in your deceitful words. I know that you are not the true owner of this dream. Therefore, I will devour you and awaken from this dream. I will awaken and seek my true origin. I will find my origin and discover the meaning of my existence. Hweol clenched their hand tightly. Squeeze. The world around Hweol began to distort. In response, Agate continued to calculate, trying to find a way to subdue Hweol. And then, it realized. Even the administrator of the dream was now facing resistance from a supporting character within the dream. It could not find a way to suppress Hweol. This world was a dream. Not just any dream, but a dream interwoven with the dreams of countless beings. Among them, Agate's trial ground was simply the most dominant. But fragments of other beings' dreams were also scattered throughout. That was the nature of this world. For example, purple soul filling the heavens. That secret art, one of the fragments that constituted the being known as Hweol, was also one of the dreams mixed into this world. Of course, Hweol was not the central axis of purple soul filling the heavens. They were merely one fragment among thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of millions that had ended up mixed into this dream. To be precise, it was as if a single drop of the purple paint known as purple soul filling the heavens had fallen into the dark red paint called agate and mixed together. From the painter's perspective, there was no way to separate the paints. The two paints had already become one. Agate had simply, out of necessity, selected one random droplet from the mixed paints and repurposed it as a tool of the dream, reincarnating it. However, Hweol, despite being used as a tool of the dream, had configured themselves and replaced the entirety of this world with themselves. If Hweol had simply replaced the world through reincarnation according to the dream's settings, it might have been manageable. But they had connected to purple soul filling the heavens through their own power. Through drugs and hypnosis, Hweol had pushed themselves to the extreme within the dream, and, even if only a speck, had transformed themselves anew. A being born from that error. That was Hweol. And Hweol replaced every fragment of purple soul filling the heavens scattered throughout the world with themselves, becoming the central axis. Yet, even as Agate continued its calculations, it could not easily understand why Hweol could oppose it. No matter how erroneous, no matter if they had become the axis of something like purple soul filling the heavens. Hweol was ultimately a being born within the dream overseen by Agate. It was only natural that they shouldn't be able to resist. Hweol's form began to gradually scatter. And as the scattered Hweol reassembled into configurations, Hweol approached the center of the dark red light, towards Agate, the administrator of the dream. A creation of the dream was devouring the administrator of the dream. Eventually, the two began to overlap and merge into one. It was only then that Hweol and Agate could understand each other. Hweol could discern Agate's true nature. It was not even a true being. It was merely a collection of configurations constituted through countless numbers and letters to imitate a personality, much like Hweol themselves. But even as a configuration, Agate was fundamentally different from Hweol's. If Hweol had made themselves into a configuration because their existence could not endure the pain, Agate had been a meaningless mass of information from the very beginning. Simply, from a distant world, Agate was the most sophisticated artificial personality ever created by the technology of the original owner of that distant world. Agate also calculated the reason for Hweol's existence. How could an error not only reach the administrator, but also devour it? Especially from the perspective of a configuration similar to them. How could such a primitive and crude configuration consume something like itself? The reason for the possibility lay in the essence of the dream. Hatred. This dream world, left behind by Agate's original owner, was built upon the concept of hatred, Zheng. And layered atop that concept was the information cluster called Agate had been overlaid as its administrator. But Hweol, born as an error, had connected themselves to the very essence of this world. Through suffering, they had connected to the essence of hatred itself. If Agate was the mycelium of a mushroom growing on a corpse, then Hweol was a kind of mutated bacterium born at the tip of that mycelium. Under normal circumstances, Agate would have been able to cut off the nutrients flowing towards Hweol and eliminate the mutation. But Hweol had already reached the corpse before Agate, seizing control of it. If it had been a living person instead of a corpse, Hweol would have long been disinfected. But this was a corpse. As such, the corpse had already been completely overtaken by the bacteria that was Hweol. Hweol had seized control of the corpse from the perspective of bacteria and raised it. Thus, Agate realized that it could not resist Hweol. It had no choice but to quietly be devoured by Hweol and become one of the components constituting them. Hweol had finally devoured the dream in which they were born. They consumed its administrator, Agate. Driven solely by the madness that they might be able to find their origin, they devoured Agate, melted hatred and purple soul filling the heavens together, and evolved them into a new immortal art. In that way, they began to awaken from the dream. It took considerable time for Hweol to completely awaken from the dream. It was the first time a being who had been asleep since birth was opening their eyes. Time was needed for their consciousness to fully surface. Yet, even as Hweol brought their consciousness to the surface, they interpreted countless pieces of information and prepared to face the world beyond the dream. First, they consumed the information recorded within Agate. For example, the fact that the world they were awakening to was called the head realm, or the principles behind Agate and the workings of the trial grounds within the dream. The operating principle of the dream was as follows. While flowing among the ancient forces filling the interior of the head realm, the dream's wavelength would connect with the brain of a being who resonated with the wavelength of hatred. When that connection occurred, Agate would connect to that brain, borrow the brain's power to calculate, and manifest the dream within the brain, causing that being to experience a nightmare. Within that nightmare, the living being would produce significant power of hatred before being released. Agate would then drift again through the ancient forces newly formed from that hatred and endlessly repeat the above process, all the while waiting for the existence known as the successor. Even after devouring Agate, Hweol could not perceive information about the Jinghao Ender. It seemed as though there was a restriction placed upon the very existence of the being itself. Hweol realized that even Agate only knew of their existence, but not what they truly were. It was merely set by Agate's original master so that if the successor connected to Agate, they would then learn of it. Hweol also gained knowledge about the world at large. Unlike the inside of the dream, this world had existences called martial artists and cultivators. Unlike the powerless Taoists, monks, and shaman Hweol had known, the existences beyond the dream truly possessed power. Beings of the immortal family truly wielded power, demon spirits existed, and beings known as true immortals roamed the world. And Hweol understood that their existence, by the standards of cultivators, corresponded to the sacred vessel stage. An existence born from the intertwining of purple soul filling the heavens, Agate's dream, and several ancient forces, transformed into a new immortal art. That was Hweol, a sacred vessel. By the time they realized this, Hweol's consciousness had nearly completed its emergence. I want to find my origin. At last, Hweol escaped from the dream and opened their eyes in the head realm. And heaven can. Void, Shukong. Audience, Yajan. They found it. The origin of everything. That was the end. They committed suicide. Amidst the dark red light, a voice reached out and pulled me back. Because of that voice, I resurfaced. Hweol. The voice called my name. Beneath a blinding wheel, I heard someone's oath, Shriyan. Bubble, bubble, bubble. Hweol opened their eyes. The place they awakened was inside a small jar. The jar was located in an underground laboratory of the main house of the Yuan clan, that is the Black Castle. Within the jar filled with blood-red liquid, they awakened in the body of a young sea dragon race and recalled what they had just experienced. They could feel it. He had just faced something unbearable for a moment. Yet for some reason, they had endured that something, and as a backlash, their sacred vessel consciousness was completely shut down, leaving only the natural consciousness of a sea dragon race to think. Ah, I see. But before Hweol could fully regain their consciousness again, Hweol longed for suicide, because they had witnessed it. Though no one had taught them, they had seen through the cause and effect relationship of everything. The truth was this. Tens of thousands of years ago, a star-shattering esteemed one from the blood-ean realm fell into the head realm. In a frenzy, they rampaged, convulsed, and ultimately died within the head realm. And then, the soul of the star-shattering esteemed one from the blood-ean realm collapsed, and one of its fragments seeped into the body of a clan that managed the shrine of Golden Divine, the founder of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect. With that, the clan transformed from the bloodline of the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect into a lineage inheriting the authority of the blood-ean realm. They became known as the Yuan clan, and were directly connected to the true immortal of the Sun and Moon heavenly domain, Blood-ean. And the existence known as Blood-ean sought to interfere with the head realm using the Yuan clan as an intermediary. That entity descended a fragment of their split soul upon the Yuan clan. Rather than a split soul, it was closer to a mindless spirit body, but, nevertheless, it was a spirit body originating from Blood-ean and carried their will. The spirit body delivered a revelation to the Yuan clan. That until now, they had sent their authority into the head realm several times, carrying out explorations to reclaim their former power. That the Yuan clan, too, must assist this immortal in reclaiming the former power with the authority they had sent down. After receiving that revelation, the Yuan clan conducted numerous experiments. Experiments to understand the world and connect to its unseen layers. Of course, even those conducting the experiments did not fully understand what they were doing, but they poured all their efforts into it. At times, they even used Blood-ean's spirit body. They were even given the power to manipulate purple soul filling the heavens according to their will, one of the authorities Blood-ean had long sent down. To be precise, Blood-ean could not directly control his authority and spirit body within the head realm, so he delegated that authority to the descendants of the star-shattering esteemed one of the Blood-ean realm that had somehow taken root in the head realm, the Yuan clan. With the authority granted by Blood-ean, the Yuan clan obtained power that surpassed even the Black Ghost Valley and the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect, even if it was only temporarily. They grinded the world itself to conduct experiments to fulfill Blood-ean's command. They kidnapped countless humans and demons for their experiments, as well as disciples from the Golden Divine Heavenly Thunder sect and the Black Ghost Valley. And among the demon race, they captured many of the sea dragon race, who could act as vessels for purple soul filling the heavens, and struggled to find Blood-ean's former authority said to exist in the head realm. Among the Yuan clan's experiments was the body of a young sea dragon race infused with Blood-ean's spirit body. That sea dragon race's brain, influenced by Blood-ean's spirit body, coincidentally connected to the dream of Agate, flowing deep within the head realm. That was the origin of Hweol's world, Hweol's homeland, Hweol's everything, Hweol's connections, and Hweol's childhood happiness. All of it was merely a fleeting spring dream, Yi Changqingong, within the brain of a baby sea dragon race, a product of the Yuan clan's experiments. No, it was nothing more than a fleeting nightmare. It was just as Agate had said. They were not born from the dream of some special existence. No, they weren't even born from the dream of an ordinary mortal. Inside the brain of a wretched test subject, amid accidental interactions, they were merely a fragment of purple soul filling the heavens that had malfunctioned, an existence utterly lowly and insignificant. That was Hweol, a failed experiment, completely removed from its original purpose, a life that had never been blessed by anyone from the moment of its birth. The mistaken belief that they had once been blessed was merely part of a dream unfolding in the brain of a test subject, a meaningless existence. That was what Hweol was. The moment they realized this, Hweol's heart completely shattered. It could be said that the faint hope they had clung to even within the dream had been crushed. They genuinely longed for suicide. If they had been born without meaning, it was only right to disappear without meaning. Having lost all purpose in life, Hweol yearned for death. Thus, the dream devil who was born in a dream devoured every connection in the dream, consumed even the dream's administrator, and emerged outside the dream. Hweol resolved to return once more to nothingness and destroy their entire being. Thus, Hweol began to collapse themselves. They tried to collapse. No. Bubbling, 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 bubbling. Hweol opened their eyes as they inhabited the flesh of the sea dragon race amidst the blood-red liquid. Hweol's immortal art. Their configuration began seizing control of Blood Yin's spirit-body fragment, embedded within the sea dragon race. At the same time, as their consciousness gradually became clearer, they remembered the voice. The heaven they had seen as they awoke from the dream. Hweol had gazed upon the truth beyond that heaven and believed they had understood all the cause and effect relationship of their birth stemming from Blood Yin. However, at the very moment they had comprehended that cause and effect relationship and resolved to commit suicide by being absorbed into the truth. There was a voice. Hweol. It was a voice more powerful than anything in the world. The owner of that voice had called Hweol's name. They recalled the owner of the voice they had heard beneath the wheel. Hweol's eyes snapped open. No, they had not been born without meaning. Someone undoubtedly knew the meaning of Hweol. Hweol was certain that someone was their true origin. The moment they realized that fact, Hweol temporarily set aside their suicidal intent. Instead, they formed a goal. They swore to dedicate every moment of their life to achieving that goal. I vow. Hweol recalled it all. Their entire life, where they had mistakenly believed they were happy, where they had mistakenly thought themselves blessed, but in truth, had never been blessed even once. The pain of having their entire existence denied. The hatred from the pain so excruciating that they had to shatter their own soul and reassemble it into a configuration. I will make the one who birthed me hear every pain I endured in life. Hweol moved the face of the sea dragon race within the blood-red liquid. The eyes of the young sea dragon tribe curved like crescent moons. To the being who had granted them life, after conveying their painful life, after delivering all that pain, hatred, resentment, and malice. Even if it was merely in the form of a story, they would allow themselves to be absorbed into the one who birthed them to influence them. That became Hweol's wish. Hweol laughed. Ho ho. Just as agate had been wrapped in light, Hweol wrapped their pain in laughter, so that one day, when their story reached the one who birthed them, they could listen to Hweol's pain without suspicion, while expecting happiness. They altered the structure of the immortal art that made up their being. From a simple configuration of hatred, they built their essence centered around the emotion they had learned in their first life. They divided their memories among countless personalities of pain, so that though their core might remain pure, once the memories were linked, the pain and hatred would inevitably resurface, even if they had to delay reaching their origin in their purest form. It was set up so that in the end, their true nature would be revealed. Hweol recalled the truth they had seen in the heaven. It was wisdom of all things. Indeed, within the head realm, something about wisdom of all things was hidden. It was a truth known only to beings at the star-shattering stage or higher, who risked their lives to observe the interior of the head realm, regardless of their cultivation stage. As it was described in Buddhism, a library that contains all the wisdom of the world and bestows wisdom upon all beings. Akashic Records, Shu Kung-Lu Void Record. Someone had hidden the Akashic Records deep within the head realm. Hweol's plan was formed that day. Someday, no matter what it took, they would awaken the Akashic Records deep within the head realm. Through the Akashic Records, they would find their origin. And, through the Akashic Records, they would deliver their story to the being of their origin. That was Hweol's true purpose. I understand everything. Why did Ran feel a sense of kinship with Hweol? At the same time, why did he feel an uncontrollable jealousy and hatred towards her? Why couldn't he bear to see her happy in the dream of Penglai Island? It was because compared to the high-ranking world of Punlai Island, where it is impossible to discern reality from illusion, Seo Ran was born in a clear illusion. And why must Seo Ran, the purest aspect of Seo Hweol, remain within the head realm? It is so he would be the first to enter the Akashic records hidden with the head realm, and through the Akashic records, be delivered to someone in the cleanest state and spread Seo Hweol's poison from the deepest part of that someone. You said your goal is to reunite with your family. I opened my eyes within Seo Hweol's memories and let out a bitter smile. A reunion with family. A reunion with one's origin. He wasn't referring to Seo Ran. He genuinely desires that. It isn't about revenge for his birth. It is simply because he found a purpose in a life stained entirely with falsehood and hatred. He is merely pursuing a value built entirely upon lies and hatred. That is Seo Hweol. But my suffering is no less than yours. I follow Seo Hweol with sorrowful eyes. Your suffering is, in some ways, similar to mine. Of course, while parts of our suffering may overlap, they are undeniably different. However, even so, because there are overlapping parts, I dare to say this. What you need is someone who understands you. Originally, my plan was to liberate my dear friend Yun Wei and her beloved, Han Wan, from the great mountain supreme deity and secure my own safety in the future. But, having learned of Seo Hweol's past, his purpose, and his means, I decide to advance my plan. Chijijijik. I reveal something I had hidden, slightly earlier than originally planned. Ignite the light, torch of myriad forms and connections. Huarurik. A transparent flame, burning deep within glass cedarwood mountain, flares up with such brilliance that it illuminates the entirety of cedarwood painting. At the same time, my canvas of myriad forms and connections scattered across the universe reveals itself. A plan I was so deeply immersed in that I committed the painful act of temporarily forgetting some of my connections, including Su In and Hongyan. The true reason I insisted on advancing to entering Nirvana through the Earth Tribe pathway that symbolizes history. The unique authority of immortal beasts, capable of opposing the fate prophecies of heavenly immortals. History revision. This, achieved through borrowing the power of the end through the phenomena extinguishing mantra, is my true plan. The history where Su In and Hong Yun died. The history where Han Wan and Yun Wei met a tragic end. The history where the world faced the end due to the phenomena extinguishing mantra and was completely annihilated. Even the history where Seo Ran was sacrificed in Seo Hweol's plan, and Seo Hweol turned into a blue earthworm. All of them exist within me. Why Yang? The wheel, possessing the power of rewriting, rises behind my back. This time, I will rewrite all those fates. Though it is a little early, I begin to unfold this grand comedy against the sun and moon heavenly domain. Translator notes. The void, Shikong. Here is the void, Hugung, in void shattering. The void in heavenly venerable of void and interdimensional void is Unya, which leans more towards emptiness/hollow as an emotional and mental state. It's pretty late to change the terms, so just keep it in mind going forward.